Hello, welcome. It's been a minute. Haven't done beef in a while. Definitely haven't done a comic stream in a minute. And here I am. Got a little bit of a new setup. A little bit of a new setup with my camera. I put in the center of my light. And it seems I'll be able to do what do you call it? Comic reviews with this setup, turning it 90 degrees. I'm excited, but yeah, I saw this tweet on Twitter. I'm going to show you. This is what kind of inspired me to get back to it, trying to promote people. Don't know how frequent this will be with my job and the weird schedule I got, but this kind of woke me up, and I feel like I do my part, whatever little bit that might help for the notoriety of this guy. He's got a very interesting concept. Let me present this, and we're going to look into it. So it's Jesse Blaze Snider. He says, if Comicsgate, which I am, won't promote my book because it's on Kickstarter, they are just as bad as the other side. And this is something that's always kind of irked me. And this is why I wanted to have an opening before I have this guy on directly on camera with me, is that really resonates because Todd McFarlane of Spawn and Image Comics, Keanu Reeves, who's had a resurgent decade of acting with John Wick and other projects, worked with Matt Kent to make Berserker, and that's on its third installment of comics. They're trying to develop it for Netflix, so that's a big thing. They've done Batman animated series like games or whatever on Kickstarter. Michael Turner, Aspen Comics, they've been on Kickstarter. So it's that's the place if anyone's going to go look for what's new in comics indies scene. They're going to go there first. They're not going to go to the Trump Yahtzee platforms of Indiegogo or Kickstarter unless they're really deep into comics. A casual person might look at something because of recognition. So I feel like Comicsgate's kneecapping itself with this EVS directive, this John Mann directive of banning promoting Kickstarter projects. Oh, also I forgot Lady Death, Brian Polito. He's been resurgent with that property for 7 years now. I think he popped up 2017 on Kickstarter with Lady Death. So it really is the place to be to sell comics. There is, a leftist audience predisposition, but strangely, even though there is political concerns with cancellations abruptly, it's like YouTube. You have to walk around the terms of service, but Rumble, Locals, any other BitChute, does anyone even use that anymore? All the alternatives are secondary. No one wants to put in the effort for another app, another website. That's the place I watch all my stuff. Same thing. So Comicsgate hurts itself, but not taking advantage of Kickstarter. So that's what really woke me up, was just this opening thing. And he says, Indiegogo shadow banned our first book and Fund My Comics, censored effing For Our Future, and did not promote it on their site. I have no loyalty to either. Kickstarter is allowing my freedom of speech. Cheers to that. Not supporting a brilliant, cool, creative person who does every part of the business right, because he ain't making the choice you would make. I just like the lefty creative people is effing lame. I believe that I have lived a life that has earned me the support of any geek culture community member who has been paying attention. Anyone who would not support me for such an arbitrary reason doesn't actually care about comics and isn't paying attention. I'm not using those platforms because they have already censored me. What do we actually believe in? Is it freedom or otherwise? That really resonates with me. And I know you got a lot of feedback. You kind of got a almost 50-50 split on likes to your ratio. So that's kind of indicative of how hot this is as far as its reception. So without further ado, stop sharing this and bring in Jesse Snider, who has the comic I just mentioned, Fucking For Our Future. I've edited it to try to work within YouTube, thumbnail and stuff for motion, but Fucking For Our Future looks pretty awesome, man. And welcome. It's nice to
thank you so much. Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about it, and excited to talk about it from this standpoint. Because, I mean, a couple things about it. Because this was said to me on the last campaign that I did. We did a campaign called King of Kings. And I remember going on, maybe it was Shane Davis's show with Mandy, and them telling us that, I'd love to back it, but I can't back it because it's a Kickstarter project. And I kept going, how can you not back it under these circumstances? Like, Indiegogo literally shadow banned me for this exact book. I had to go to another platform where we might have some traction and be able to make this happen. And, and it never was able to line up. So there's some visitors for my children. And after that, just recently with Fucking for Our Future, I decided to give Fund My Comics a try. And, no disrespect to them, but I was hoping for a little bit more in terms of when some pros, I was working with behind the scenes people. I told them, I said, I've got a Marvel artist in disguise. We're doing something that, really could make a lot of money in the marketplace. Kickstarter makes a lot of money on this all the time. If you can help me in any way to, like tell me how to use the system properly, and, they assisted me the same way the Kickstarter people had assisted me when I had those people trying to get me on in, just like directing me towards their thing. And then that was it. It sat there, and the people who backed it were people that I told and gave a link to. So we made like $350, and I went, well, here's a tiny pond, and they're doing the same thing that Kickstarter's doing for everybody, essentially. And, I thought that maybe we would get treated like, with some respect, because we were bringing something nice, and, they could help promote us, put us on their front page, any number of things. And nothing like that happened. Granted, I understand that the book's called Fucking for Our Future. We have nude, covers. But I really feel like, and it's going to seem like a strange comparison, but John Denver had a song called The Rocky Mountain High. And it was banned all over the place because people were like, it's about getting high. And, this book, would at a glance be deemed pornography, but it's actually about procreation. And it's a totally scientific approach to the subject matter. And it's really, I think, one, not erotic in any way, shape, or form. It's more like a Looney Tunes cartoon. And, for me, it's like, I believe that, let's say this is a good example, right? If you get into like sort of the trans debate and whatnot, and people are having to ultimately, you could use the word mutilate their body in order to, fix themselves, and not always are the results people really happy there. But there are exceptions to every rule. There are people who are very happy. And, I just met somebody the other day on this great spiritual show that I was with, and she was wonderful, and she had such a wonderful thing. And, there are those people who can do the thing, and it doesn't mean that no, get them thing or whatever. Like, and we have to allow everybody to be free to just choose their own path, whatever it might be. We have to let people make art the way they want to make the art, because just because I made a book where there's expanding boobs doesn't mean I'm a pervert. I'm a father of 4 who's been making comics for 20 years. I've worked for Marvel, I've worked for DC, I've written horror, I've written kids stuff. This was a market grab, sort of business strategy. There's a lot of books in this area where they get a lot of attention. The quality isn't very good. And generally speaking, the content story-wise there's like non-existent. There's nothing there.
Oh man, it's funny you say that, because Lady Death, I'm a novice Comicsgate through Star Wars kind of associations with YouTube. That's how I got into Comicsgate, found EVS, found your boy Zach. I'm anti your boy Zach now because he's a fraud, in my opinion. He's a fraud and a hack.
Why do you feel like he is?
Oh, I guess to put it quick, his whole.
I would just say about him that, because I've listened to him for years, there's something about his energy I don't appreciate, but he would always say things that were meaningful and were true. But then somewhere along the way, I really felt like he started sort of baiting the audience in an unfair way, and sort of like mocking us for sort of like coming together in unison to say that we don't approve of certain things. And then it was like,
comic skate, and then he like turned his back on it,
Well,
basically.
yeah, I mean, I guess he did that in a lot of ways. Like, you know, in a lot of ways, he sort of went, the fans, you know, the fans are right, and then he went, oh, you fans are too much, you know. And I guess I understand what he means. You know, I mean, like, certainly there are fans who are too much. I mean, like, you know, there are people who I'm like arguing with on Twitter right now, just kind of for fun. Because I'm just on there and I'm doing things that I'm sort of like smack, 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 smack. Oh yeah, you
Yeah.
want to play with me? Smack, 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 smack. It's really fun. You know, like because I just don't even view it as the real world. But you know, the people who are open to conversation and like check out this book, you know, I built it to kind of have that argument of like, look, it's not actually about getting high. It's not porn. You know, it's probably good medicine for somebody who's been raped because it's sex without the desire. There's no eroticism to the book. The basic story of Fucking for Our Future is just what it says. 1,000 years ago, the planet Glon, the men and women split up. And there was a proliferation of sex robots at that time, which the women went up north with and like terraformed the planet, started cloning, and they've been up there living in a matriarchal paradise ever since. The men, when celibate, cracked open their genetic code and turned themselves into these Bigfoot-like monsters living in the mud in the wilderness. And they wrote into the genetic code that they'd eliminate penis envy by making each generation's penis slightly larger than the last. So now these three-legged men, some of them have had to move into the oceans because they can't drag it around any longer. So they're just these giant penis men who can't even, you know, like, I don't know how they would have sex, but they had to make this power armor for this thing, imagining that it would be the same way as the old ways. But I'm telling you, the old ways are never going to be the new ways. You know, so they're going to be going after this all the wrong way. The men have no interest in sex, and the women aren't interested in sex in the right way. They have this detached need for the sperm, and you know, at a certain point, it's probably going to start becoming very like, well, maybe we need to shoot them. You know, it's like, well, they're innocent creatures. You know, there's going to be there's so much like story that has like come out of this whole thing, and it's really all about like showing humanity through just the women. And just ultimately showing that the same parts of humanity that we see within men and women come out in just women, which is the thing that I think people miss. It's like, you know, Nancy Pelosi and Hillary Clinton, that's not a matriarchal paradise. That's more patriarchy. They're like dudes. You know,
Yeah.
I'm more like a woman than they are. Absolutely. I'm a feminine guy. You know, I'm on the spectrum of the LGBT community. Not that I like to be fucking, you know, picked out that way.
Oh, yeah.
But,
I'm the same way, man. I'm a
yeah, but I'm not like a standard straight guy. You know, I'm on the spectrum. But like I don't like that. I don't like that whole breaking down of the thing because I think the spectrum just goes on forever, and I think I'm a unique snowflake. And I also think that like tomorrow, who fucking knows what might happen to you or under what circumstances you're in prison now. Like, you know, like a lot of people might change their minds all of a sudden. So, but I mean, I just think it's such a funny thing to even say too, because it makes certain people uncomfortable. But the reality is, you know, being like, oh, that's my line, and like keeping yourself like, it's like, you know, be cool, know who you are, and what's right for you you'll always know what's right for you. There shouldn't be some like giant battle about this sex stuff, and we shouldn't be overcorrecting and forcing anything that we might be into onto other people. I really feel like that's kind of like the least part of storytelling that I like to see featured in story at all. So like to a certain degree, I don't even understand this genre that I'm playing in right now. But there's a shitload of unscrupulous businessmen making a lot of money in this genre right now on Kickstarter. And I thought, you know what? If we can go in there and do something really interesting that artist friends like you know that I've been working with my whole life, you know, that they'd appreciate, something that would give us street cred, you know, as just a really fucking cool and fun bananas project to do that actually brought something to a world and a genre that generally doesn't really have any, like at all. I mean, it's just most of this stuff is just presented so terribly because the people who own and control these things, they're not storytellers. They don't know what good is. So, you know, as somebody who knows what good is, we made something like this that is good. And, you know, people can appreciate, like, you know, from afar, the pretty covers and stuff, even though every cover is also a gag cover. You know, if you look closely at every cover, you know, we're doing something kind of fun and funny. And it all ties into the story of this power armor that they've made to go collect the sperm samples because there's a need because the cloning machines aren't working. You know, it's just a very practical science fiction story that happens to revolve around procreation. And, you know, and I get an excuse to have nude covers and it fits with the story. But The nude covers
You know what you're
aren't
doing? You know what
good.
you're doing? Like what you're just saying. This is what
What?
I've said about the brilliance of HBO. Generally, like their big franchise, of series or whatever in their
Yeah.
history is like HBO is like, ooh, I might see some titties in the show. It's always been the Game of Thrones, especially with the first seasons with Daenerys.
Yes.
Oh, see Daenerys's tits, see the whores,
Game
and
of
then,
Thrones would have been called "Fucking for Our Future."
but
Fucking
it's
people
it's a
over
big
fucking
it's a big
people.
tr- it's a big trick, kind of. It's preying on the like monkey brain of us to then you end up watching this political theory show about different manners, ways of power, and it's like analyzing, and then it's also like Lord of the Rings fantasy world and stuff, but like the sex aspect is part of like the promotion to like get because it became the biggest show ever with
And that
normies.
was the angle. Essentially, it was like, look, it's not nerdy fantasy; it's adult. And that is kind of the thing. Like one of the big things that I want to do with comics in general, since I was a kid, I felt like we are living in this unspoken renaissance because the majority of sculptors and artists are making comic books and action figures, and it's not appreciated because it's been like spoken down upon for so long, the way it should be. But we have the most incredible artists on the planet, like so many living at once who have created these worlds. Your Brian Bolins and your Art Adams and sorry,
Oh yeah,
my
like Art Adams.
I love Art Adams. And Simon Bisley, and even like people like Phil Hester and Scott Collins and Scott McDaniels. You just go into their world, or Damian Pluckett. There's so many fucking cool artists out there, and most of them have to move into doing video games and other bullshit and stuff, even though they love comics, because they can't make enough money here and they're not being supported. And I saw it. I've been in comics, professional comics, for 20 years. My first professional work was at Marvel, and when I've gone up through the ranks, at various companies, but I tend to kind of hang around waiting to be given work by various editors who are promising me things, and things never come through. And I ended up kind of dying on the vine at every little company, and or at least feeling like I was, and then getting to a point where I'm like, fuck this, moving on to another place, moving on to another place, moving on to another place. So I did Marvel, I did DC, I did Disney Pixar, I did the Muppets, what did Evil Ernie at Dynamite, and licensed comics, and Dynamite, they really moved out of the way, but the way they promoted it, I was really bothered by. And also, they wouldn't let me put Brian Polito's name on the book and Steve Hughes' name on the book as creators. They created the characters, and that really
What?
bothered
I
me.
never really thought about that. I looked into that. That's crazy.
Oh, and that really bothered me because I'm really good friends with Brian Polito, and then I had this moment where I was at a comic convention, and he was at another table, and I realized he was avoiding eye contact with me. He was hoping that I wouldn't notice he was there. And it was because he was so uncomfortable about the Evil Ernie thing. And I've known him since I was like a teenager, when I was going to conventions at like 16 in Chicago. He used to let me leave my book bag behind his booth and stuff, so I could go and run around the con, because I'd only ever be there for a day. I was like on there, on my 7-Eleven salary or whatever it was, to go harass Eric Larson. But like he's like my oldest father figure in comics, and I was mortified that he was uncomfortable to see me when I was working on that stuff for Dynamite, and I couldn't get his name on the book, which I was trying to do. I kept putting it in my scripts, and they kept
Now,
taking.
have y'all like engaged afterward, and you've addressed like, hey, it wasn't my
I've
choice?
seen him since, and yeah, the last time I saw him, I actually cried a bunch because I was like, I felt so bad about the situation. I felt like I had owed him, that he was so encouraging to me in so many different ways. As a young pro, I mean, he knew me before I made that decision, but he was always just such an encouraging dude. And him and his wife, and I mean, the whole Chaos crew was really like a little bit my inspiration of what I'd like to do, with my company and what I'm trying to build, and be able to give an opportunity to like, hire a lot of people to do comics and do the things that they love, and do it right. And so many people have done it so wrong for so many years, and I think there's a lot of people who have gotten close to it, but it's going to it takes some work to get a foothold here in the industry, because everybody's on like even keel. It's like the moment you go independent, and you're putting your own money into the advertising, you only have so much money to put into the advertising. You only have so much reach in social media because everything's locked up. They want you to put their money into every bit of social media. It's really hard. You got to go after.
There's I don't know if you plan to try to put this somewhere else, or do a second chance in the future, or I don't know, but or like a sequel, I guess, for this book. I don't know if you
Well,
know.
if you're looking for a future number two, depending on where we end, I think my artist might be down for it. But I mean, honestly, if we don't make 15K, him and I don't get paid our normal page rates just for doing the work.
Yeah,
Because like we need 15K to like make the book. From coloring and lettering, paying the people back that did our variant cover, the colors for our thing, the advertising money that we put in. By the time all that stuff's laid out, like he and I'll just barely get paid what we would normally get paid if we were getting paid by some company that wasn't really paying us very well. So I mean, it's a thing of, I think it's worth it to just put it down low and just know that, like, you get paid whatever you're going to get paid, and then push the thing as far as you can go. But I want $100,000. If I get $100,000, I can breathe easy for a second. I can get all this stuff going into the next book, which is drawn but needs to be colored and a couple other things. Start doing all the advertisements, signing people up for notifications, whatever else, and have another book out in 2 months. Versus if we end at where we are right now, it'll be I'm going to get those things out. I'm not stopping. I'm not going anywhere. But it's going to take me 2 months or 3 months or whatever it might be to figure out how to get all that shit done and get that together and move ahead with the thing. So it's really like, if you want to see some people who really know how to make comics, have been publishing since I was 19, and working for the majors since the beginning of my career, because I'm very good at channeling the stuff that we love and writing things for the fans. And still at this point, everything that I write is for the fans. This is just a science fiction story. I just tried to take a genre that was really kind of bizarre to me and turn it into something that I wouldn't be ashamed of. And that's why I've been like, arguing with people on Twitter and stuff like that, because I'm not ashamed of
well, it's kind of a good promotion, honestly.
It
It's
is.
like,
That's the thing. It was just to give me something to talk about, really.
well, it's funny because Polito and stuff, and I'm a novice. So like my first comic in the wild that I got was ironically Purgatory. I have the Sideshow statue. I just moved it.
Oh, nice. I said Brian Polito's name to the right person.
Yeah, yeah, Purgatory, because I love AC/DC. That's my favorite band. That's why I'm Black Angus. And I saw the name, so I used to be Catholic. So I'm like, Purgatory with an I. What the hell is that? And I put like, it's a demon vampire goddess. Like, fuck yeah, this is perfectly up my alley. It's like a tits and ass book with a devil chick. Like, amazing, awesome. Now, unfortunately, there's not lots.
I posted a whole depository of my work, my PDFs of things from Marvel and other places. I'll share it in the private chat, and you can share it out with everybody watching. But this is like every piece of work that I had on my computer that I could share, my Hulk one shot and Marvel Comics Presents and all these different things. And they are actually, I've got a better link. Actually, I'm going to give you a better link than that one. But they are, sorry, copy. So I got the link. They speak for themselves. I love the medium, and I don't think you're gonna. I will challenge people to tell me that I even have a style. I write to whatever it is that I've been hired to write. My Muppet stuff feels like Muppets. My Toy Story stuff feels like Toy Story. My Punisher.
Oh, you worked with Toy Story?
Yeah, I was the monthly writer for Toy Story for a while. And there's a whole bunch of pitches and things like that weren't used, original scripts, a couple scripts that got slashed at the last minute, but I got paid to write, but they didn't actually get published because like we had to dumb it down. There's a ton of things. And then a whole bunch of PDFs of Marco Cicchetto's first work was with me. Him and I did a Deadpool story for Marvel Comics Presents. He's the great artist that's been on Daredevil of recent years. I love Marco. Marco's a sweet dude. And he and I have been friends ever since. But there's tons of just different things, unreleased things and stuff that was interesting. Alice Cooper, slot game that I wrote like this whole thing for. There's actually a voiceover of Alice doing it, but I didn't save it apparently onto my computer, and I can't find it now. So I wanted to share that, but I couldn't locate it anywhere. It's a bummer.
Yeah.
It wasn't the best voiceover, though. I was disappointed. I love Alice. I was like, I'd written it for his voice, but he didn't really like give it his all. But he's getting old, so maybe he couldn't.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you said talking about the cocks evolving in these future men, because that like that makes me laugh, because that's the thing that I always love thinking about is like one of my hobby interests in science is evolution in various ways,
Yeah.
especially bear with like primatology and sexuality and stuff. And the idea, I love the movie Avatar, and so when I
Yeah.
saw Avatar 2, I was blown away, and like at like some of the things that he's kind of just like teasing him, I'm so frustrated. I'm like, I wonder, this movie needs like a 9-hour cut, because there's so much you could play with like this universe, and we're just scratching the surface. And
Oh
the
well,
idea
he's
of
gonna get
like
to it.
the idea of oh, this other subgroup of the Navi, they've specialized for the water. They have paddle tails, and they have like webbing on their digits, you know, to help swim. They have a different evolved kind of paddle arms. And I'm like, huh. And then you apply it to penises, and that's fucking hilarious.
Well, and I mean, and that's the thing. Like, you know, this book is kind of like the extreme feminist and anti-extreme feminist wet dream. You know, the men are like, we don't need society anymore.
It's like
It's for
Zardoz.
women to make it for. We're gonna go roll around in the dirt, like fuck it, you know. And the women go, we're gonna show you how to do this better. And you know, they do, and they go up and they do a better job. But ultimately, they run into some trouble because the men need the women and the women need the men. And you know, and like for me, that's the thing. I love women. I've always got along really good with women, and not like really felt like there was this huge men and women divide. It's funny. It's only like in like recent years in social media have I even like kind of got the notion that like we're like so divided. I never
Oh,
really thought that at all.
it's funny you say that. Did you were you aware of the recently the bear meme of women, like TikTok?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember just say I said something about it because I said it's this bear meme thing is really kind of nasty, and I think it portrays like a nastiness of like some of these women in society who really have this notion that like just because they've had bad experiences with men, that all of the human race that has penises are these men. And like there's just so many different versions of men, you know, and it's like, and we want to support the LGBT community and stuff like that, and they want to make it just like straight white men. And like I'm straight and white, even though I'm like on the spectrum of something, but I'm straight enough, you know, that like it pisses me off that anybody who's like
I
straight.
like that.
Like,
Straight enough.
well, yeah, like I mean, like I'm
That's my
like
new
a
phrase.
boy, and I've always didn't feel like a boy per se, even though I like boy stuff, a lot of boy stuff. But like I'm kind of soft natured and like creative, and like I go after women who I think are really kind of tough. I like tough women, but I like beautiful women, and you know, but it's like, but that's me, and everybody's unique. We all have our own unique thing. You know, they would call that non-binary. I didn't really feel like connected to a particular sexuality. I kind of like formed whatever it was that I was based on like the things that I liked that I saw, you know, but not really based on any notion of like I'm a boy, so I have to do this, you know. But some things I did because I was like forcing myself to do it because I did think I'm a boy and I got to do this. So I do understand, you know, that thing, and I've always been a champion of that. You know, of just everybody should be allowed to do whatever the fuck they want as long as you know they're not making the world a shitty place and hurting people. And you know, and that's the limit. You know, it's like yeah, go forth and be merry. Just like don't fuck with others. You know, if you can.
Yeah, no, it's just like hearing you, like just seeing the initial pitch, reading the first couple of pages of the available PDF you got. It's like, all right, this is kind of funny, wacky. But then hearing you talk about it and the depth of thought you're putting into it, the social awareness and stuff, this is
Yeah.
amazing. Can't wait to pick
Oh,
it more.
can I real quick while I'm thinking of this, can I exonerate all like mainstream members of like Comicsgate or whatever? Like because the whole thing that started this was a friend of ours, like you know, supporter of the book. He reached out and he was just like, well, like, are you a little worried or like how are you going to navigate the thing with like them not supporting your book on Kickstarter? And basically, what I was really saying was, I would hope that our story and the fact that we were Shadow Bandit and Indigo ourselves, and that we have a reverse story, would sort of pull at the heartstrings in the same way that have led to this, you know, boycott, and allow people to make an exception for our book because this is what works for us. And I'm a pro-creator who's always been cool with fans. I've always supported the fans, supported fan attitude because I am a fan. I mean, go back fucking years and years and years. I've been hosting panels, whatever else. I've always been fan-oriented. Hey, I'm a fan. I buy toys. I buy statues. Like that's the shit that I love. I had a huge fire a few years ago and I lost all my toys. But I used to have on my Instagram, you can go find Coolest Geek JBS. You can find all my old Instagram posts. I used to have the largest collection of 6-inch scale characters, like I think on planet Earth, and it was in a city that I would put them in. I would take pictures and stuff. And you can find like lots of fun stuff. But I mean, it just demonstrates the level of interaction that I've been having with this material. I read books, not as much as I read comics, but I read comics galore. And and that was where I wanted to work. So I studied and I read a lot, and I have the utmost respect for the pillars of our industry, the great writers, the great artists. I will sing all their fucking praises till the cows come home. I spend fucking 3 hours every week just what do you call it? Gushing about my favorite fucking movies and my favorite TV shows and my favorite. I do coolest picks. I don't review anything. I go, this is fucking awesome. Go check it out. And I try not to spoil it. On Mondays, I gush about my favorite bands. I've got a show called All Your Favorite Bands Suck. That's my music podcast. I gush about my bands. I think I've earned the fucking right. One, having fucking worked as hard as I have in the business to be fucking good at it and to reward the audience and be cool to the fucking audience and to spend as much of my time and energy bragging about other fucking people who do a great job at the thing. And I mean, I keep telling people if I make $100,000, the first person I hire isn't going to be me. It's going to be my best friend, Aaron Sparrow, who I've watched make millions of dollars for other fucking people who didn't appreciate it and never freaking cut him in on the thing and work with him to make things that much better. I'm going to fucking hire him. I'm going to, just start to make this ship right. And I'm going to start to give the opportunities to these artists and these colorists and these writers and all these people where they're getting paid a little bit more reasonable wage. And maybe, we figure out how to look out for our people a little bit better long term. And they have some sort of stake in the project that they've worked on if they really did some creative work on it or whatever else the case may be. There's so many ways to make this freaking industry work for us. And I've seen so many people kind of talk a good talk, but most of them don't really seem to know how to make good comics. But we've been making great comics for a little while now. And, we really, I think, the proof in the pudding. And, I see that Dropbox link, you can go read our PDF. The PDF for our future is there. And you have until 1:13 tomorrow, 1:13 p.m. tomorrow in the afternoon to buy a book, to get in on the book. You can read fucking For Our Future right now. You can read our stuff. But it's not an erotic comic. It's a Wile E. Coyote cartoon, a Roadrunner cartoon about procreation, and it broke down in a sci-fi way. It's an exploration of the sexes in a very subtle but extreme. It's in some ways subtle and extreme, extreme ways, but it really is the most intelligent porn comic or nudie comic that you will ever see. I'm really quite proud of it, and I'm really happy to give away this link to my Dropbox with all of these PDFs and stuff. Please go read deeply. I've written them for an audience, and I'm always so happy to connect with people who have read my stuff because I've only written a little for Marvel, and a little for DC, and a little for Boom. Doing the Disney comics and the Muppets things, and a little for Dynamite, and I kept moving from company to company to company to company because I also make music. I'm also a voiceover actor, a prolific one. I work in narration, I work in commercials, I work in video games and cartoons, and done a lot of hosting on television, a lot of reality shows with my family. I do a lot of shit. So, chasing after the comic book industry when I keep doing good work and saying I would love to do more work, is not my biggest priority. I do a lot of other things as well, so it ends up being sort of like a hustle where I do this as I can and I do that as I can. And it's always ended up being very unforgiving and aggravating trying to make it in comics. And, and I'm really just, kind of just pushing myself out as hard as I can right now, and even pissing people off when they come out of the woodwork just because I want to, because I know how volatile this audience can be. So let them be as fucking angry as they can be, because the people who actually check out the work and the people who actually read the things that I say beyond some fucking stupid conversation with some asshole who just decided to sight unseen call my comic a porn comic or insult my art or something like that. Just that's just the moment.
I don't know why they'd insult your art. The main cover is fucking gorgeous.
Oh no, I think it's completely ridiculous, and but it's just some people just if you're a Puritan Christian reading comics and whatever, and a lot of people they're not putting a picture of themselves. They're not really telling you who they are and whatever. And so many of their perspectives are completely skewed, and that's why you have to take everybody's thoughts with a grain of salt. But I'm here and happy to defend my book in any way, shape, or form. I'm not ashamed of it at all. I think it's really great. And I think it came out great. I've been laughing the fuck about it like crazy. I just like, I mean, it's just such a ridiculous premise. And I never thought I would do anything like this. So it's super ironic to me. I spent my career doing kids books and trying to pursue a career in the mainstream. This is a desperate man working on the fringes, trying to take control of his destiny through indie comic books so that he can make the type of high level and creative art that he's always wanted to make, but he's been stopped at every fucking turn trying to make in the mainstream for one reason or another. And if you ever go back and listen to any of my podcasts, Cool Geek Alive, I talk at great length about my career and every different project that I worked on and so many of the different hurdles that I dealt with. My show's really built the most for the entertainment consumer who really likes to understand what they're looking at business wise. And I understand the numbers and I understand just the economy of entertainment on so many different levels. I've been in the business so long and I know it on so many different aspects of it. So, I've become a wealth of information. And it's like, people don't say that because people are like, I don't like to hear somebody say nice things about themselves. I say nice things about everybody. So, don't fucking piss on me because I'm telling you, follow me, find out what I've got to say. I need help, as so many great people have discovered. They need help no matter how good they are. They need help getting the word out there about who they are and what they can do. And there's so many great YouTubers and whatever else, and they're growing because people like me go, oh guys, these people need help. They're great and they need help. And I'm a little publisher and I need help. So, if you like anything that I say, and appreciate the type of man I am, don't get distracted by the fact that I'm confident in what I do. It's like, that's fucking window dressing. Everybody should be confident in what they do. And if you're not, fucking work harder and go back to the drawing board, read some books, do something so you are confident in what you do. I've spent a long time to get to this point where I am confident in what I do. I've gotten into a bunch of arguments today about using the word deserve. I've said that I deserve attention. Our book deserves attention. And people say nobody deserves anything and all this stuff. And I said, I'm sorry that you live in this world where, under the boot of the fucking man, where nobody deserves anything. But I live in an idealistic world where people absolutely deserve things. People who work hard. What's the point of working hard? What's the point of putting in that extra time unless you don't deserve the promotion, unless you don't deserve to get that thing that you've worked hard to get? Deserving, that hasn't gone away just because it doesn't always work out that way. And fuck you for perpetuating that idea that it's not going to work out for the next guy because it didn't work out for you. We should be cheering each other on. People do deserve to get somewhere when they've worked hard, when they've toiled in an industry thanklessly that doesn't support what they do. And there are tons of artists just like this. All of us were on this equal playing field, and so many artists and writers that I know, I see them put out books and they don't make shit. Just like I've struggled to make anything. When we got shadow banned on King of Kings the first time, second time we did better. But even then, I had a good friend of mine who kind of came out of the woodwork to provide us with a big chunk of our fundraising. And so many people are being helped in those ways. But really, if we really want to terraform society and get rid of this stupid upper class at the top who is just forcing all of this stupid culture upon us, we have to be gourmands of all the things that we love. We have to seek out the people who are really good, trying to do it good. And I'm just going, the only way I know how to do this is to go, guys, I've really worked hard to do this good. It's not ego talking. It's me going, I've worked really, really hard because I just wanted to be able to say that and know that I'm good at this. I do this very well. I care about so many aspects of what it is that I'm doing when I'm making a comic book, including getting out of the fucking way of the people that I work with, so that they can do their best work, knowing that they're good and that they are good enough to do the thing, giving them what they need to do their best work, being supportive as a shepherd, as a teammate. I've been publishing my whole life. I love it. I love communicating with an audience. I love comic books because, my face isn't on the thing. I hate doing all these fucking YouTube things and all this social media stuff. I like making art, and, you send the art out, people read the art. But this is something I have to do. They say the meek will inherit the earth. Well, not until we stand up and be leaders and lead the way to some new things. So I knew people would get pissed off if I started saying nice things about myself. So many of the meek people were all scared to be fucking prideful. I'm not prideful. I love everybody. I believe everybody's capable of greatness. I really do. And when I see greatness, I fucking, I yell about it. I love to talk about what's his guy, Daniel Warren Johnson. He's like, just because he's like my latest love artist wise. He did a Beta Ray Bill miniseries. It was fucking rad. Really blew my mind. And there's just so few artists who are great writers, and he is one of them. And I tell everybody that I get a chance to meet, who likes geek culture stuff. Like, have you read that new Daniel Warren Johnson miniseries? And he's got other shit too that's really cool. That's who I am. I love arts. I love the arts. I've been studying it my entire life so that I could be good at it and I could make meaningful contributions to it. So, just please, understand that there's no ego in me saying I'm good at this. Take a look at the things that I've done already. You'll see that there is just love there waiting for you. And that is the case. And that is the case with this book too. If you like comic books as a medium, if you like science fiction, if you can tolerate a good time, a laugh as an adult, with the word fuck and some stuff that revolves around the word sex, if you can handle a little bit of humor that's a little bit risque, you will be so rewarded for checking out this book. It is so unlike anything that anybody's ever done before because most people are scared to do anything like this. And I've said a few times now, I've probably ruined my professional career, or at least for a little while, by putting out a book like this. Well, yeah, okay. Marvel sees this. They don't want to hire, Disney doesn't want to hire somebody who does a book called fucking for you. There's so many arbitrary reasons why they might stop including you in their process, in their posse. And I, for many years now, have been talking shit about the damn industry and how it's arranged. It's not the people. The people are wonderful. It's just that most of the people who you work with, they don't really have any power either. I watched it with my brother. You had some producer who really wants to work with him. He loves him and basically just doesn't want to let him down. And he holds him on to him and tells him that it's going to work out for forever, even though when he knows it's not going to work out. There's and really recently there's been some real legitimate racism going on in the entertainment business across the board. I had made a really big pitch to an indie company and basically been told in the quiet way of that, like, there was no way I would be sort of cast to be the person who would oversee.
Oh, you're a white guy.
Yes, exactly. Like they said it to me in a way that made me immediately go, are you trying to just say that I'm white and therefore not the right look, as opposed to aren't these good ideas? Because I reached out to them because I just got a really good idea, and the line that I was pitching for was having some success, and I saw a way for them to really double their output. And I was like, you should do this. And you could continue exactly what you're doing, but you'll maximize this line. And it was really clever. It was just like a creatively charged. It had a lot of good creative parts that were good to the thing. But it wouldn't just be me writing, it would be a few people. We'd have to kind of do it but it would be really embiggening what they had there and building on the success. And by the way, this line has since lost the momentum it had. But I was pitching this thing because it was really felt like a good time, and I felt like it would really be. It felt inspired, and they were like, "Yeah, you're like that. There's not an Ice Cube's chance in hell that will bring you in to do it." And similarly, one of my siblings had forced these people who he was working with to give him an answer why it wasn't going forward. They said all these positive things. I don't understand. Why isn't it going forward? And they finally told him point blank because he was a white guy. And I mean, that's the world that we're living in right now. It is reverse racist and a bit weird and whatever. And I don't even like to dwell on that shit at all. If it's not meant to be, it's not meant to be. I feel like for me, that just is this is just the excuse I need to be an independent artist because this is really silly. And I've spent long enough getting good at these things that I do to go somewhere where I think I will be rewarded for the quality of my work. And that is the fandom. And that's why I'm not afraid to get into an argument with a couple of people, because I really believe the proof is in the pudding. My Dropbox is up. Go read those books. I shared it in the private chat if you want to post it in the comments for them.
Yeah.
Go take it. Go take advantage. Go read all that stuff. I mean, I dare you to read it and then come online and tell me how terrible my books are. And any comments that you might have, I may actually have a good story about a capacity in which the thing was limited, because I have been limited, and so many creators are just limited all the time. There's all these pitches there and stuff that you're going to find that are really great. And as a fan of any of the things, you'll be like, wow, this is so great. How come they didn't approve this? And there's a story to go along with every single one of them that is frustrating in its own way. And that's why I included those things there, things for Monsters Inc. 2, a pitch that I called Monsters Inc. 2. I'm a huge Monsters Inc. fan. And I wrote a pitch.
Monsters University sucked.
Oh, dude, I wrote a pitch for Monsters Inc. 2 that if you're a Monsters Inc. fan, it'll be like your favorite thing. My kids ask me to read them the story all the time because they just love the story. And it was basically about like social disturbance in Monstropolis because they changed the laugh floor they changed the scare floor to a laugh floor. And their whole society had been built on scaring in so many ways. And all of a sudden there was this whole generation of monsters who were out of work. And Sully, who had been put to like this board of 13 monsters who were like the city council, is deliberating this thing between the laugh side and the scare side, because the laugh side is 10 times more valuable, right? So it's like economically, it's like a real argument. But there is this social thing, like we've been left behind, like, these scary monsters are all of a sudden a persona non grata. I can't get hired to make kids laugh. I'm really scary. And there's a girl monster that Sully's in love with who's really scary, called Ivanka. I want Ivanka something or other. But she's like, it was something based on like Donald Trump's daughter or whatever at the time. It was years ago, before Trump was the president. And he goes into the human world and meets with a teenage Boo to basically like sort of get some advice on what to do, because he doesn't know what to do. He's in love with this girl who's on the scare side. He is a scary monster. He liked it better when he could scare. He did like scaring. He felt good at that. He understands how these monsters feel. But Mike and everybody else, it's like 10 times more. What are we going to do? And and I'll spoil the basic thing, but I mean, because they go the whole thing with Area 51 and all these monsters like the Yeti and Bigfoot and all these different Loch Ness monster and different monsters that are scattered all over the planet and having to attack Area 51 and great stuff. But he basically comes back with what he learned from Boo, which was older kids like to get scared. And at a certain point, these goofy monsters aren't going to make the older kids laugh anymore. And we can still get some extra juice out of the next generation if we keep a certain amount of the scare floor open to the teenagers, the goth teenagers like Boo. So it ends up being this whole great, like just because he slowly goes into the human world and Boo's trying to hide him, and you get to reverse, so many of the tropes that you get to see in the first movie, but then we get to connect to Area 51 and build on the Yeti and his snow cones and all of the various monsters like the Jersey Devil, who looks exactly like Mike except he's red.
Okay.
Jersey Devil. So and the Area 51 alien, he's just a monster from Australia. It was one of my favorite pitches I ever wrote. And the only reason it didn't happen actually was because the previous Monsters Incorporated miniseries that Boom Studios had released hadn't done very well. So they were resting it, even though they owned the license. Well, they had to pay for it every time, I guess, they used it. So they were resting it, and they might do it in the future. And if they did, they were going to do my pitch, but it just never happened. And then I tried to pitch it directly to some Pixar people at a certain point in time. And I was trying to tell them, like, this has already been pitched to Disney. Like, you guys own it already. Just use it. Like, because I want to see it done. But that person was like nervous. They would give me the copyright bit, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, I used to work for Disney. I'm like, fuck you, just like, pass it to the people. It's what we need. But I mean, that's the thing. You can be a fan, and then you get in and you deal with the licensees and all the different people involved, and you go, oh wow, this is why the things aren't very good. These people don't get the Muppets. They always thought the Muppets were kind of goofy, so everything that they produce is kind of goofy because that's how they think the Muppets are. So it's like, you need to get somebody who deeply appreciates a thing for its quality. Like, I really understand viscerally why the Muppets are funny. And like, it's a good kind of thought example, but the Muppets are really great for us because everybody's got something that they want to do, and they're scared to do. And the Muppets all do, and they all suck at it. Fozzie is the worst comedian. The Swedish Chef, he can't finish a meal. The Electric Mayhem, they can't get through a set. Animal keeps fucking breaking all their shit. Gonzo's going to burn down the theater or blow it up. you know, and the list goes on. You know, when you get Wayne and Wanda, you know, they can't finish a dance without breaking their fucking ankles. Sam the Bald Eagle keeps trying to make the show more patriotic and more patriotic and more highbrow, but everything keeps going lowbrow. Every single character, it just goes on down the line. And then Miss Piggy is worse. She's an actual pig. She's a bad person. She's pig-headed. She's selfish. She does not have the qualities necessary to succeed. She's got everything working against her. She's got no talent, and she's a bad person. And then what do Disney Muppets do? They make a show where she's been rewarded for being the worst person, the least deserving person on the show. And she's got everybody else working as underlings around her for her show. Oh my God, talk about one, like, an aggravation to the people who have been watching your show, going, you just rewarded the worst, like the morally most despisable person of your show. The comedy came from how terrible she was. And now we have to see her in a higher position even with this thing. And we've lost the Muppets pursuing what they want to do despite the fact that they're terrible at it. That is the thing that we love, that helps us let loose our anxiety about the things that we want to do that we secretly are worried we might be terrible at too.
It's funny saying this because I'm not a Muppets guy at all. Like, I was in Sesame Street when I was a kid for a little bit, and then
Sesame Street's the for kids stuff. The Muppets, when they're at their highest game, that's what they're always doing, and that's why they're so great. And they really can subvert a lot of cool things of like the I'm an adult kind of attitudes and whatnot. So I mean,
well, like with you saying what you explained, like the Muppets are all failures in their craft that they keep pursuing. It's like, oh, that's funny. I've just never given the effort to look into it because I'm like, yeah, Muppets, whatever. But that's like I just want to like know, like, wow, someone who doesn't give a fuck about Muppets, you've added like an insight where it's like,
some depth. Well, yeah, I mean, that's how the thing, you know, it's like I'm not a huge into wrestling. I've had some moments with it in the past, but so many of my good friends, you know, because when I have a good friend, I like to appreciate things with them. And my friends have helped me to understand, you know, and a lot of what makes wrestling really cool, like if you're a big wrestling fan, it's a lot of the behind the scenes. It's how these characters are made and how they're built over time, and so many of the stories of what's going on behind the scenes and these real characters in real life. And you know, like there's different aspects to it. You know, in Star Wars, and there's things like the EU, deeper stories that give more meaning to the original trilogy than, you know, is there by itself. Those fans, you know, they've always been able to make me love their thing, you know. I mean, I think that is the thing that a good fan does. A good fan can make you love the material, you know, and gush about it in the right way. You know, I like to credit Eric Larson with giving me my love for comic books. I love his Savage Dragon, the Savage Dragon comic book that he made for years and years. The first 75 issues are some of my favorite comics ever. And especially because his letters column, that I would read every letters column that he put out. He had so much love for comics as a medium. Loved Jack Kirby and had all sorts of little pet peeves about things that people would do when they were drawing comic books, that like they were doing it the wrong way or doing it the right way, and being happy when people did it like this and not happy when people did it like that. And it really was infectious. And when I decided I was going to be a writer, and you know, realized, you know, well, I read a lot of comics, you know, that was the one that I liked the best. You know, maybe I should think about writing comics. You know, my love and desire, I think, to thinking that would be a cool and worthwhile, credible thing to do, I think came from the way Eric Larson, you know, really admired craft. And, you know, that made me just a gourmand and a craft lover, you know, from the very beginning, constantly looking to see if I could really make the perfect comic, you know, the perfect first issue, you know, various things. And, you know, and it's hard. And I certainly have not, you know, once or twice, you know, for my liking, you know, in hindsight, made the perfect issue. But every time, you know, like you trying to make that great thing, you know, as best as you can. And of course, too, the big thing, you know, there's documentaries on creative people. Like somebody was mentioning about like Star Trek creative people, like literally stopping the production, the producers, you know, from making some choices intellectually that were going to fuck up the franchise and fuck up the way the stories were being told, and, you know, screw everything up for the people who really cared. And I mean, that's like the big thing. It's like working in mainstream comics and licensed comics. A lot of it is learning how to avoid problems that will spring up from bad notes and really people who don't really know how to tell stories. making arbitrary sort of suggestions, or and by suggestions I mean something that you have to do, a change you got to make, that really fucks up the line of questioning. Like the fuck up jokes, the fuck up punchlines. They'll invite like an idea that they want you to introduce, or something that really is like besides the point, and it's going to bog down the plot. And isn't that, like, there's a lot of aspects to making a nice, well balanced story that they're not thinking about. But I've spent my whole life, for me, it's been 20, well, I mean, really, I've been writing things since I was a little kid, poems and whatever other shit, so communicating through whatever, writing stories and stuff by the time I was 15, 16, 17, so I'm 41 now, I'm going to be 42, so I've been really putting a big effort into studying, reading books on writing, William Goldman's books on writing, and Stephen King's books on writing, and this book that I recommend to everybody, Wired for Story, that's a really good one, or Save the Cat, and so many other ones that I don't fucking remember the titles anymore. But those were the books that I remember because they were really good. But I've read plenty that weren't as good. But those ones are some good ones in various ways. I mean, people don't really seem to fucking read anything anymore, and they
yeah,
study the craft in any way, shape, or form. I mean, like, I'm like embarrassed of like so many of these people, but you do find people in the indie world who are like, there's a couple great new creators who are just like, oh, I'm gonna read that, I'm gonna read that, and that's how it should be, man. You should be fucking reading shit and like figuring out how to do this the right way, because comic books are the greatest art form on earth. I really believe it.
I was thinking about that. Yeah, it's like I didn't grow up with comics, but I've always grown up with like the cartoons and the movies, and I kind of became aware of comics as a medium. Like, how to say, when I saw Avengers, I seen Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, but it wasn't until I saw Avengers, I'm like, oh, these are all like together. It finally like clicked.
Because you were getting like, oh, the fact that they like interact like means like, on what level would they interact? Oh, this is periodicals and they interact. Yeah, like, see, that's the thing. The Marvel universe was like the world outside your window, and the idea that these characters might interact, and the characters that survive, because there's tons of characters that have been pitched along the way, and they haven't like stuck on the wall because they didn't necessarily fit within the whole universe, because everybody fits a niche. Spider-Man's different than Captain America's, different than Iron Man, different than Thor, and that's how they stay on the shelves. And it's really cool though, because it ends up making up kind of like the zodiac of different characters. And it's so fun to go in there and play in that world, because zodiacs play off of each other in different ways. Some of those zodiacs love each other, some of those zodiac signs don't get along,
Yeah.
and all of these different personalities that are carved out in such specific ways, because they need to be unique unique to stand the test of time, month in and month out, on the stands next to Spider-Man. I can't be identical to Spider-Man. Spider-Man's already the funny, ambidextrous, running around shooting webs guy. I got to be somebody else that might.
Wait, you talking about Spider-Man and stuff, and kind of like defined characters that'll last long term.
Oh yeah.
It's funny you say that, 'cause you just got me thinking. It's right on the tip of my tongue. What do you think? 'Cause this annoys me, as like, I'm a comics novice, I'm a movie guy. Again, Star Wars what got me into Comicsgate and comics awareness stuff. I get annoyed. Like, I'm someone that, like, I'm in Comicsgate because I believe in like the ideals that started it, and independent creation, and like fuck the like corporate overlords, that are limiting us. So like all those like core tenets of what we're about, I'm like a foot soldier for. But I get really annoyed because, unfortunately, given who's in power and stuff, generally speaking, this is, the Yahtzee group in comics, and I get annoyed though with my own side a lot, because even though they got great arguments about like the system and how it's gone, they seem just like stuck in like, well, Superman needs to be Christopher Reeves, and Spider-Man needs to just do this. And it's like, yeah, but that's already been done. And I get frustrated because it's like, Stan Lee, our god of comics, he's like, hey, you got to just keep trying things. You got to keep throwing things at the wall, and most of it's going to fail, and then something's going to stick. Like, I don't think he expected Spider-Man to like take off how it did. It was just like another thing, like, hey, let's try this thing. And then that is the big thing now. But yeah, I think there's like some sort of like stuck in the mud aspect.
Concept. I think he was looking at the marketplace, and he was looking at what DC was doing, and there was crossovers going on at DC. But DC, every single book was self-contained in its own world. So there's a lot of history of comic shit. But if you go back history of comics, everything was in its own little microcosm. So like, you know, there was the Earth 2 Flash and the Earth 2 Superman. And then there was one of the first meetings was the guy with the Flash bowl on his head meeting the Flash that we tend to know as Flash. But that was Golden Age Flash and the modern age Flash. And, you know, those two worlds, that multiversal thing was sort of one thing. But I think Stan saw an idea of, well, what if they all took place, you know, in this one location where they were it was a little bit more intimate. And like we had an awareness that they were sharing some space. And because in this awareness already as a publisher, you have to have an awareness that they're sharing space on the shelves. So if they're sharing space on the shelves, just let them share space in the universe a little bit more together. And this is, of course, what inspired years later when they did Crisis on Infinite Earths and they killed Supergirl and they killed Barry Allen Flash, and they merged all these universes together. And the heroes kind of remembered that there was this thing, and it used to be like all these different, but now there's just this one universe where they all exist together. So, you know, that is the early way of it, you know, Stan creating a world that felt more familiar to the people reading the comics. And honestly, that's my future plans, like in terms of, you know, when our next step with the company, with Black District Studios, will be going to licensing with a few books that I'd like to get behind and try to put some things behind and try to demonstrate my love for and help build them a little bit. And then after that, we're going to do some of our own books. And a big part of the own books, like the universe that we want to build, is about building a universe that's a modern world outside your window in the right way. And I think I have a lot of good ideas about how to do that.
Oh, so, no, you said modern audiences. That's like the buzzword.
No, well, I don't mean it's funny because I don't mean that, like, I don't mean it like that. But I mean more like we live in a conspiracy world, you know, a conspiracy fact, you know, as a lot of people like to say. You know, it's so silly. You know, it's like the people who are conspiracy. We were just reading books, man. You know, the proof of things being rotten in the way the world goes round has been there for a very long time. You know, and the new world is going to be filled with, you know, autistic spectrum, smart people like myself, you know, who are high functioning and able to communicate. Dude, just read a couple books. Things are rotten, and let's not stand for it anymore. And let's create new systems outside of this bullshit. Because they're running this all, you know, they're running it like it's, yeah, don't look over here, but like the puppeteers are fucking crooked as hell, and nobody, we're suffering. You know, we're all suffering. The gap between the wealthy and the blue collar. I mean, it's like so ridiculous. Like the middle class, there's nothing middle about.
Oh God, yeah, I'm a factory worker and I should be middle class.
Yeah,
it's
dude,
like I struggle. I can't imagine working at like 7-Eleven.
My girl's a union electrician. She should be middle class. We're not dealing with middle class problems. You know, I'm a divorced father of 4. I've got 2 families that I have to, you know, support essentially. And I've been trying to start my own business for the past bunch of years. I'm really dedicated to that, you know, 24 hours a day within my podcast and all the other things, hustling to make that my life. So, you know, it's been a little crazed for a little while because, you know, we need to get that financial, you know, stake underneath us. And it's hard to do that when you really bravely go into looking out for yourself on that way, which I have. So, you know, it's not a world for weak men, you know, to go out into business for yourself and also to be a creative person who believes that greater art is possible. You know, the only way greater art is possible is if we put people who are capable of great art in charge. I volunteer. Put me in charge. I will be good to everybody, and I will make sure that there is more great art in the world, because that's the world I want to live in. I just want to live in a world where there's more great art. And you know, I got things that I'd like to do, but I'm really largely more like about shepherding the next generation, the next wave of comics, and like, you know, helping us to really be living in a world that I'd like to live in, which is lots of opportunities for great artists to tell stories, because that's just like the best, man. Myth and storytelling and, you know, powers and space and just like just science fiction concepts, shit that costs money to make films about. You know, I just want to see people draw shit that you can't just make easily. And then I want people to really spend time wondering, this would be so cool if we could make this more easily. And then one day, you know, have the AI be able to do it. But it's like, you got to invent the cool ideas in order for the AI to copy it. So like, you know, like I want to help us all have an opportunity to make great ideas. Most of the people who are great at comics, they're being paid to do shit that is below them. They could be doing much more interesting and creative things. You know, it's rare that something like Fucking for Our Future that comes out that is kind of groundbreaking and different. I mean, nobody's ever really done anything like this. And again, you were loads of porn. No, like I'm telling you, look at the porn comics and then look at our book. It's very different. It's very groundbreaking.
Yeah.
It's not like the typical thing that like people do at all. It's really quite different.
That's what I was gonna say. To your concept of your book is, it's got like real potential to explore various aspects of sexual sciences, and that's why I get frustrated. Like I like the appeal, the sex appeal of Lady Death comics, but like I read them here and there, and I'm like, it's just kind of melodramatic. Like it'd be great if like you had a hot, well drawn tits and ass comic that also had like a meaningful story. You know what I mean? Like they're kind of just like, yeah, I buy it for the art, the stories, whatever. It's all hell and heaven, and so there's really no limit. Someone can always come back. Oh, I'll send you to Oblivion, but then actually there's something beyond Oblivion. So like that's what gets frustrating. But that's like I would say kind of the high bar of tits and ass comics. Everything else is like might be kind of clever innuendo stuff, but there's no real story. It's just like, how do I make an excuse to draw sex? Which is fine, but like I want something real, like it's not that porn is a problem. It's like it's been TikTokified where like no one's engaging like any kind of intimate story that's meaningful.
Exactly. I mean, there was this book called Jinkies that this company put out that I worked with for a minute, and I was very upset how they treated my best buddy Aaron, who they brought in as an editor. They brought him in, he quit a bunch of jobs so he could work full time for them, and then as soon as he caught them up on everything, they were like, we don't need you anymore. And he went down to part-time again, and they completely screwed him. And with the creators, like they weren't really crediting everybody all the time, and like they didn't tell me that the Kickstarter launched. There was a whole bunch of things. They didn't credit me twice. I had to ask. It's like it was really aggravating. And then they cut my ownership of the book from 10% to 5%, and I had accepted the page rate that I was getting because I was getting 10% of ownership, and I wrote something that I didn't have any ownership in for them at my lower page rate because I was getting 10% of the thing, and I was trying to be a team player, and like they didn't care about that. They were taking advantage of the people. So this is the experience that I've had at every single company that I've ever done, or ever worked with, and they take advantage of all the creative people. And they did a book called Jinkies, and they thought it was like the highest art form. They're making like these just tons of stupid sex jokes with Daphne and Velma lookalikes, in nightgowns and shit, and selling nude covers. And that was when me and my buddy Dizzy Arnold went, fuck it, man, two can play at this game. If we let them, these people, they made $100,000 in one day. I'm like, like shit, these people do not deserve your support, and they are getting it from this community because they're selling tits. I'm like, all right, fuck it. I deserve the damn support. Like I've been busting my ass in comics for years. And like, I've been doing the right thing, as a creative person, really humbly trying to get my work. I'm done being humble, man. Like I love this medium. Like give me a chance to help you guys have a great time. This medium's so great, and we're being so fucked by the way this shit is being put together. And I'm trying to get myself into a position where I can help to elevate this great art form. And I've talked about this before too, and I'll just say it shortly, but the great thing about books is they're an interactive experience. The great thing about film is it's done for you, so it comes up a little faster. It's not quite so paced where you have to read through everything. The visuals are provided. Comic books bring those two things together. In a movie, when something exciting happens, it just happens. You don't do anything. In a book, when something exciting happens and you're turning a page, and on the next page there's stuff, you still have to read a whole bunch of sentences before you get to the exciting thing and go, oh my God, it's exciting. But in a comic book, if it's being written properly and drawn properly by craftsmen, when the exciting thing happens, it will be on a turn page, and you will be involved in the process. And by turning the page, you scare yourself. You kill the character. You change the plot of the story through your interaction with the page turn. And this is a very visceral thing, and it really changes everything for people who are just immersed as they're watching a thing and it's all being done for them, and them feeling some sort of responsibility towards what it is they're doing. And I really believe it like empathetically connects you to the story experience, and to our sort of the monkey brain, the drawing the cave pictures on the wall, and archetypes, and the simplicity of storytelling through there. There's a lot of things about it that I think are very smart and very important, and that it is the greatest art form, and it has never been given the respect that it deserves. And I plan to make comic books until it is given the respect it is deserved, because it is really just the best thing on earth. And so is toys, toy making, and sculpture. I mean, it's like fucking mechanics and art, and like the Da Vinci's of the world eat their fucking heart out. I mean, these people are sculpting things you've never seen before at Four Horsemen Studios, and some of these wonderful sculptors bringing
Oh,
things to life that
have you
people have drawn.
have you seen there's this I didn't follow him or anything, but I seen this video these videos going around lately of this guy. He'll use like a 3D like gel pen and he'll like make like Spider-Man like
Make
he's like just
Spider-Man using a 3D gelatin? Oh, just like sculpting and stuff?
yeah,
I
he's
follow
like he like draws an outline, then he starts
I
like
follow if you don't follow like sort of like found art and sort of interesting artists on, like, you're really missing out. There are some outside of the box thinkers on like Instagram, stuff like that, that are so cool and original. People, there's one guy who I love where he's like constantly breaking the frames that he puts the art in, and he has the art inside the frame interacting with the frame in some way, where it's setting the frame on fire, it's cutting into the frame. Amazing. And other people who are going out into you know, reality, grabbing a chunk of white sidewalk and making steps in a well that look like photorealistic, you know, and then walking down those steps and, like, you know, making it look as if there's thing there, and then throwing some water on it, and you realize, wow, he just did that art. And then, I mean, not to mention, you know, makeup tutorials of people just like transforming.
oh god, yeah. That's
I mean,
crazy.
it's really, really cool what's out there now. Like, it's, I just love that. I love craftsmen. Anybody who can put something really cool together, make something from nothing, a really good cosplay costume or any of that shit, makes my heart sing. So I just love living in this world where we can share it with each other so easily. And you know, most people don't get paid for any of that. And
Yeah.
you know, it can be.
Oh, he froze up on me, or I froze up. I'm not sure.
For people to do.
Oh,
So,
okay,
you know,
back.
as I make my way in the world and get more opportunity, you know, the first person I hire will be Aaron, and, you know, and the next person I hire will be other people working on the various things that we're working on. Maybe that might be me, but, you know, ultimately I'm going to be creative directing, you know, from afar, just as we figure out how to get these things done, because, you know, money costs money, and, like, I don't want to have to spend more money on me. You know, I have podcasts and I do things that, you know, are paying my bills right now, and that's great. You know, this stuff is extra. This stuff is for my company. I can't take money out of my pocket anymore to fund this company, but I can, you know, try to trumpet that it's worth it, that I'm doing good work, and that I deserve help here, you know, on this pre-order for the book. The book's all done. You know, it's not going to take us very long to get the book out, a month or two, depending on what kind of, you know, bumps or hiccups we run into.
You're at 11K now.
Yeah, I just saw that a minute ago. Really excited.
It's
Thank
awesome.
you guys so much. If any of you guys in the chat are helping it out, I really
Yeah,
appreciate it.
I backed the nude, even though you put the PDF thing. It's like, well, I want to like support you at least minimum. With the PDF, which I like having digital stuff, because it's just like, man, buying physical just costs money and takes space, you know. So it's nice to have digital.
I understand that completely. I like doing the PDFs myself. They're easy to get through. Though I do love reading a comic.
Yeah, yeah, it's nice to have a book in your hand, but
yeah, when it comes to the Kickstarter thing, you know, I really think, you know, I always make them right. You know, I like to do the firmer cover stock and, you know, the smooth pages and stuff, because, like, it is a thing. You know, we're asking you to get these variant covers and stuff. I don't like it to be some like shitty version of the book. So we really always go out of our way to make sure that our books are really finely tuned, and really, I don't think we've ever made anything that wasn't pretty good quality. You know, even though we've used a lot of different printers, but, you know, just when you know publishing pretty good, you know what you're looking for and stuff. So it's been good, and I'm really just super excited to get this in people's hands, and I think that, you know, people who buy the whole shebang of everything will be really glad that they got in on, you know, the whole bit of silliness. And I think it has merit, you know, what we're doing, and it is that exception to the rule that is not pervy and gross, and you know, I think is necessary and is cool and says something in a lot of different ways. And I think over time there will be a lot of people who are going to be singing the merits of what we did here, and that this is really neat and different in a lot of different ways. And I'm sure there will be other people who will be inspired by it, because we're breaking a lot of rules that other people, you know, have in the past been unable to break. And by breaking those rules and doing it in a way that, you know, you don't have to be ashamed of as creative people, that's the type of stuff that inspires other people to try the same thing and go, oh, you know, this makes me think, you know, all of a sudden the door's open and now there's new ideas that I haven't thought of, that, like, somebody else is going to be inspired to think because we dared to think a couple things that hadn't been thought before. So, and that's, you know, the way of art and the way of things like moving forward and stuff. And I do think there's a lot of Puritan people out there in dogmatic.
Oh God,
Still, who love to like fight this kind of thing. But it's it's a real sex positive, sort of thing. This isn't like any sort of rapey book or in any way, shape, or form. This is just like I said, it's a cartoon that just happens to revolve around sex. And if anything, it's kind of making fun of creepy, lecherous people because we're just making fun of sex. It's silly, and but at the end of the day, there's a need for it, and that's what the book's about.
Yeah. Well, you said that. I'm actually going to pull up the. I should have done this way earlier, but pull up the trailer for anyone.
Oh, the trailer. We made a jingle.
Here you go.
Nobody doesn't like.
Oh crap! Sorry. Hold on. Let me rewind that. I have the sound muted on my side at least.
While you play it, I'm just getting myself a drink real quick.
No, you're fine.
Nobody doesn't like. Say it again. Men and women alike love big titties. Boys, girls, and babies love big titties. Just admit that I'm right. You love big titties.
Who does?
You love big titties. Love big titties. I love big titties. I love big titties. I love big titties.
We want you for our future. Sign up for notifications now on Kickstarter.
You love big titties.
Only from Blacklight District Studios.
Yes. That is a great trailer. Honestly, it's funny as fuck. Oh my god. I like watched like a second of that trailer earlier on my phone, but like watching it on stream paying attention, like, oh god, this is so funny. I think you should share the trailer instead when you're arguing people, instead of sharing the link to the thing, you should share the trailer directly.
Yeah, just as a mock.
Yeah,
maybe that's the thing.
That's good, especially on Twitter, because you can just download your phone and then like having your album and then boom, reply.
Right, come on, man. Nobody doesn't like big titties. Like, I mean, like for me, it's like at this point, like, don't you see? Like, I'm mocking the whole thing. Like, it's just all a joke. Like, I'm just leaning into it as hard as I can because I do think that this is like perverted and kind of silly and whatever else. But we're doing something very interesting, within that context. So, thank you for appreciating. I appreciate it, and that's like the whole point of it. I mean, down to we have all of these artists who are our what do you call it? They are we have a manga artist, we have a hentai artist, but they're all my main artist in disguise. He did all of these style copies where he copied, just some manga people, and then all the names, if you put them into Google Translate, they're like names of like female anatomy. We've just been having a really fun time goofing around, making this perfect thing with our Okadaya variant. And I forget what Okadaya means, but it's a Japanese word, I think, for pussy or something. So, it's just from the very beginning, we have been taking this not seriously, but at the same time, taking it very seriously in order to have a good time with it, but not do what I think everybody would expect from something like this, usually.
Yeah, hold on. I'm sending this to someone. Hopefully they might share you out. Shit. Bear with me 1 second while I send this. Because I don't want to like miss out and like you got those 24 hours, right? So I'm trying to like get this out to them. So maybe you'll share it. It's funny you're talking about the Puritan aspect because that frustrates me a lot. I don't know how much you follow Comicsgate drama as of late.
I try not to because it just drives me crazy.
Right. Well, yeah, I'm a big Eric July detractor. It's been most of my content as of late for a while because I'm just like truly devoted. It's not even a grift for me. It's like it works, I guess, as a grift as of late to help grow yourself, but it like a legitimate passion for me because I just it's such an interesting like sphere for the last couple of years how it's developed and everything and analyzing it and all the
Yeah,
fans.
it definitely is worthy of analyzation. No, I agree. Like I think that's the perfect word. It's like, especially because what happened to nerd culture is the exact same thing that happened in politics with Republicans and Trump supporters. They did it to the fans of Star Wars and Star Trek first. There was a major appropriation of geek culture by the mainstream. Basically the next generation of the Tavistock Institute and the CIA influencing music with Elvis Presley and the Beatles and all this shit to control society and break down the fibers of society. And I was kind of all about a lot of that stuff for a while because I was like, yeah, anti-establishment and like I believe in more sexual freedom and all these things. But all these things were weaponized, and all the bleeding hearts and cool people of the world who wanted more freedom for the people on planet Earth ultimately now are being used as a tool of the establishment, and used as a tool for ill, for the establishment to keep doing what it's been doing, and all they've done is just turn us against each other, and now we're like fighting and arguing and whatnot, but it's all for nothing. Nothing about it is bringing us anywhere. We're just fighting. And and I knew just that this thing would bring about plenty of that bit. And I'm honestly like, for me, it's like either we're about freedom and freedom of speech, or we're not. And I had a lot of pushback on King of Kings because Jesus was one of the bad guys. I just depicted Jesus as a bad guy. Jesus isn't even his fucking name. His name's Yahweh. Jesus is depicted as the character that went around forcing different groups of people to convert to, Judaism at the point of a knife. That's what the book's about, and that's the Jesus in the book. It's a comedy, but it uses that real historical thing that there are some people who have a chip on their shoulder about Jesus. From their perspective, Jesus wasn't kind to them. So that's reasonable. And I, as an artist, I need to be able to make that commentary within a story in one way or another so that you can let off the steam of the people who have that anxiety about people telling them they're going to hell if they don't get saved by Christ or for one reason or another. I don't appreciate those people going around doing that. Dogma is what led to the creation of King of Kings, which some people considered blasphemous. The shitty business people doing these sex books, and me knowing that only those people are going to do it unless somebody like me figures out a way to do it in a way that they can feel morally okay about it. That's what led me to doing this book that I wouldn't necessarily normally have picked to do. But there has to be space for these things, and I will argue until I'm blue in the face that there always needs to be room for people to explore these ideas. As long as you're not hurting other people, that shit is okay. On some level, it's like people hurt the thing. I'm all about, to some degree, about clear and present. You cut off that damn child molester's penis. Let's get him out of here, kind of thing. But at the same time, as an older person, I've also become about how do we fix this fucking problem long term? I've got 4 children. I don't want to live in a world where there's so many fucking people who are dysfunctional in this way. And because we're going about it the way that we're going about it, I'm nervous we're not giving them because they're hiding, So then it becomes if there was more ways to fucking try to get people help, like through virtual reality and things like that, where people like that could go through therapy or some other bullshit, because most of the people who do things like that, they have been hurt themselves. They were sexually molested. The majority of people who molest people are people who've been molested. It's like there needs to be some avenue to start to heal the thing, especially if you believe in reincarnation, where you think, oh, I killed that pedophile. Now he's just going to come back as somebody else, and I don't know where he is anymore. Literally, now he's hidden amongst the population. It's like we need to stop the cycle of abuse in some way.
Oh my God! Wait, really quick. It's funny you're saying this about
punch the Nazi. We got to have conversations with them on the internet so we can find fucking common ground, so that there is no more war. We do have to at some point move the ball forward. I mean, don't you think?
It's just funny you said that about the reincarnation aspect of a the idea of you take out one of those diddlers and then he just reincarnates, maybe as a lesser form, but it's like, well, he's still just going to be a diddler possibly. It's funny because me and my friend talking about uh a funny story idea of like personifying spiders, and it's like almost every spider species, they're like, I guess, kind of matriarchal based in like the power. It's the females actually, and they usually kill the males after
They're
one.
usually bigger, right?
Mhm.
And sometimes do they have? Sometimes some of them have multiple males.
I don't know about that, but yeah, they usually kill the male. The male only gets to like sleep with one female, then he's gone, generally speaking. And so there's like some spiders that like basically roofie the female so they can like live another day. And I was thinking about like, what if you personify that story, and it's like, because they're predators, so they're more minuscule number than
Well,
the
those are the types of stories that have merit. When there's already a sort of precedent for the idea in real life, the idea of the cuckoo when he's stealing the other birds', eggs, or putting the eggs into other people's nests and making them raise the eggs for them. Like, oh wow, what an interesting story that would be to play out in our society. Like, it's so wonderful actually to pull things like that from the animal kingdom and whatnot, because it is so organic and makes so much sense, and they tend to say something about us as characters in one way or another. This extreme action that an animal might do.
Well, the idea is like it'd be very dark, uncouth comedy, because the idea is that the spider is, I don't have a full idea, it's just like this one thing inspired this like scene idea where it's like the spider's in a bar on a date with the girl spider, but they're like predators, so they're very like minuscule numbers, they're not seen often, so people don't really know about their culture and their reality biologically. And so like this one of these roofie spiders like roofies a girl, and the bartender like catches like, hey, and he's like, no, you don't get it, I have to roofie her, like.
Well, that's it. When you can create something that's a mechanism. It's like, no, sorry, you triggered the mechanism.
No, she's going to kill me if I don't roofie her.
I was explaining on Film Thread that's character really. Character really is one note that's played to its fullest place. This guy's a klepto. Why is he klepto? Because of where he comes from, because of who his parents were, because everything works to support that he's a klepto. Everything works to support the thing. Everything makes sense. A lot of people just kind of throw a bunch of odd characteristics at a person, but it won't come from like a place of sort of like teaching you about how somebody might get to where they are. It's just some arbitrary character traits, and you're left to like figure out what that means, as opposed to having the character be deeper and deeper and deeper by just expanding on what that really means. Them being this trait and this, them being most focused on this makes them secondarily focused on this, and makes them interested in women like this, and makes them want to live somewhere like this, and makes them want to do something like this. All of those things will ultimately complement something, like, and that's the ideas that you want to pick, and that's how you want to build things, and that's how you make an organic thing. You just honor an attribute to such a degree that every time it comes back around to that thing, it's like, oh, there goes Joey. He's a kleptomaniac, man. He just can't help himself. He did it again. He did it again in a new way. This writer keeps surprising me with all the ways that Johnny the kleptomaniac keeps stealing things. And just when I think he's not going to steal anything anymore, he does. That's character. That's how you create a thing. That person is so authentically the attributes that they've demonstrated to you that it can't be denied. It's not too hard, but you just have to read and understand. Like, I'm not good at this because I'm so naturally good at it. I mean, to some degree, there's certain things that come naturally to me. I've got a good ear, and I'll like hear dialogue or something. You might be naturally good at dialogue because you can hear stuff like that. But largely, the reason why I'm a good writer is because I've read so much great writing. I've read just at least 1 million fucking great comics at this point in my life. I have to have at this point. Really, I mean, like so many fucking great damn comic books, and tons of great books, and tons of great, even more great nonfiction, and watch hundreds of thousands of fucking great movies at this point, or hours of movies and television in combination. I'm sure I mean, I've absorbed the best. And when I hear something's amazing, something like a Better Call Saul, and you go, all right, well, let me see what everybody is thinking about here. Or something that's really classic and important in comics, what is it? Dark Knight Returns or Watchmen or Crisis on Infinite Earths or something like that, or 300 or Frank Miller's Sin City. Seek that shit out so that I can be in the know, so that I can know what everybody's reading, so I can know this stuff's good. Most of the people in the marketplace, I just read Marvel, I just read DC, I just read independent comics. And, the amount of people who are like me, or maybe you are becoming, where we really read a wide breadth of things, interested in a wide breadth of different things that might come up their plate. It's a relatively small group of people, and we are the tastemakers. We're the people who are taking the time to adore the artwork, to really get into the thing in a visceral way, to decide if this world that has been created is a place where I want to spend any of my time. And that's the thing. Time is valuable, and we read shitty things, and we end up friggin' knowing about all sorts of worlds that are no good, and that we never want to go back to ever again. But we do that because we want to get the ones that are awesome, and when we get the ones that are really awesome, that's it. That's the high we're all looking for. I think, to be able to feel a little less alone and go somewhere that makes us feel like we're learning something about our humanity and seeing something play out that scratches an itch of our aggravation or frustration about things that we're not seeing play out in the world, but we should.
Yeah. Man, I'm always scatterbrained. There's just so much I want to talk about and I'm interested in.
That's
I really appreciate it's it's like
the conversation.
It's always But
I will say that I want to, if we can keep it to like 15 to 20 more minutes longer, because I would love to get to see my girlfriend a little bit.
No, you're fine, man. I guess a couple of things I want to pick your brain about, since I just saw this. I haven't perused it myself, but the pitch on the tweet was interesting to me. I sent it to you for discussion today. Let me see. Where is this from? Oh, so it's from a video. Damn it. But have you been watching The Boys? Are you a Boys fan at all?
Oh yeah, I was, but the last two seasons really kind of turned me off.
Okay, I can understand that. It's definitely once season 3 happened, it was like halfway through before it like caught steam. It wasn't an issue, but it like lost steam until about halfway through the season because of all the threads. And that's the same thing that's happened this season, where it's like, all right, kind of starts out good, interesting, and then it's kind of like meandered. And then I think episode 4 is like the Homelander episode. I'm like, oh my god, this idea of like nature versus nurture with him specifically, and this kind of Nietzschean ideas that there. And I'm not an expert on Nietzsche. I'm just like scratching the surface, becoming aware of him and his ideas that resonate. Basically the memes of his ideas that I've come across. But what's funny is they got this new person playing Black Noir, because like I guess, like, if I'm not mistaken, Black Noir is like dead in the show, the real Black Noir. So they not letting anyone know though. So he's playing this role, and
which is kind of the funniest bit of the new season too.
Yeah.
And the thing about him actually having a narcolepsy and falling asleep.
That's hilarious, because I was like, oh, that's funny. He's like, cunt's narcoleptic, and then like he turns around, and then it's like, oh, he's back up and kicking his ass. I'm like, and then to find out it's real, I'm like, I appreciate that kind of shit. That's funny. That, like, those little wrinkles of creativity. The Boys is frustrating in certain ways, the show, because like I understand it's so profound, because DC had the first 6 issues and they tossed it away, and now you see what they've dealt with Warner Brothers trying to make anything besides Batman work. And it's like, you could have been making this on Warner Bros. On HBO, but now Amazon and Dynamite get to make all this money that you passed up on. And it's funny. The big funny thing to me is like, people are getting triggered by the show because like, oh wait, they've been making fun of the right wing the whole time. It's like, that's kind of implicit in the comic of Garth Ennis.
They have been making fun of the right wing the whole time. I don't think that it's like, but they were definitely more balanced in the beginning. Yes. I have actually been like, it's not so much the making fun of the right wing thing that bothered me as much, even though it did bother me, the creator coming out and making such a point of it. I just think it's distracting from the narrative and stuff, and it's like not necessarily great. And it's like, again, it's like if you want to do any good work in that community, like, you know, if you're under what I think is really a mistaken impression that the Republicans are racist, I really don't think that that narrative is true. But if you're under that mistaken notion that they are, and you're trying to do something about it, subtlety is better. You know,
yes.
You know, be subtle about it.
Perfect example with the subtlety is George Lucas. He made Star Wars with like the 60s libtard college kid anti-Vietnam stance.
Oh, yeah.
But it's so subtle, no one picks up on it's a Vietnam allegory.
It's a totally establishment thing as well.
It's American Revolution as far as the average person would interpret it.
Yeah, it really is. It really is. I mean, it is about an American. It's about a revolution. Period. Because of corrupt things. I mean, that's what it's about. I mean, it drives me crazy actually that so many people kind of miss that. You know, because I always just say the Star Wars thing is just so funny because it is our reality. Like it's not even a metaphor. Like that is our reality. And you know, the people who don't get that have just not lived enough reality. You know, I've been invited to join the Illuminati, you know, at different points in time. I don't believe in secrets and secret societies and that shit, you know, but those people are running the planet. They are. And they've been paying all of the college professors and hiring the ones that they want and paying for the production of the books that they want covered and paying the medical establishment to fucking search and research until they find the medicines that they want to prescribe to us and they have access to that they can make money off of. It's just all motivated by their betterment and to our detriment. And they just, the gloves are off, the wheels are off. They do not care what they do. They don't care how it hurts us or affects society. And the only way we're going to fix it is by taking back all these systems for ourselves and making new ones. So, you know, I'm trying to do this here in the arts, and, you know, one day I'll do it, you know, as a leader, you know, in politics and things like that. But at the moment, you know, I just don't necessarily feel like I have enough to offer in terms of a platform. But, you know, I've been growing mine and getting, you know, the word out about the things that I do and trying to use my power for good. So, you know, somebody has to, and I love this. And, you know, this is always what I've wanted to do and what I've been trying to do for many years now. You know what I mean? Eric July hired Chuck Dixon. That's what I tried to do 8 years ago, right before my divorce and my fires. And I ran out of money from Kia Motors, which was my big voiceover job at the time that I was using to pay for all these comic books. And I had Chuck Dixon on the line, and I took him out to dinner, and I said, "Hey, Chuck, you're an incredible creator. I think anybody will read anything great, you know, that I could put together with you. Can I put together a great project? I'd like to hire you for my new company. I really think that you could be the pillar of a new company and of somebody demonstrating that they're paying attention and do it right." And sure enough, there's multiple people now using Chuck Dixon's name and Chuck Dixon's talent to great effect to do great work on Kickstarter. And I knew that would be the case 8 years ago. If I hadn't run into all the trouble that I did, I would have been the first one to do it, and I would have proved it. So I was glad.
Funny. It's funny to hear that with the Alpha Corps. I'm like, oh god, because that was my first Chuck Dixon book, and I'm like, this is the guy people were bragging about. Like, I mean, I read the first issue of Bane, like his first issue did, and it's amazing.
What book did you read by Chuck Dixon? What was the first issue? The Ice or something?
Alpha Corps from the Rippaverse.
And you didn't think it was great? I haven't read it. But he is an incredible writer. I haven't read anything from him in years, but at the time, last time I read him, he had not lost any of his ability. But he is known for things like Nightwing. Yeah. His Nightwing series is one of my favorite of all time. Pretty much any of his Batman stuff that he wrote at various times is great.
Yeah. It's funny. So like I have the first volume of Nightfall. I haven't read it all because it's like confusing because like again I'm a comics novice and there's all these numbers and runs that interconnect and it's like what is it's confusion of reading comics, you know. But so like, you know, you read the first issue of Bane, his introduction is like, this is so fucking good. But then
I love
the
Bane.
Nightfall story
of Batman. Actually, the Nightfall was what my friend handed me because when he got into it from the Michael Keaton movies, the first thing that he went to go read because they were breaking Batman's back at the time. So I read all of that stuff starting with Nightfall. And then I started monthly issues with No Man's Land, which I really love too.
Yeah. The problem trying to read Nightfall is like I don't know the backstory of all the Batman lore because it's like different writers for the whole series that like is kind of like I guess oversaw mostly by Chuck with
there are certainly like killer storylines that like are really worth reading because they just set up so much of like the lore that everybody's come to know about Batman and make people fall in love with it as much as they do.
on accident at my local comic shop, because sometimes we'll have like short issue, like 12 or under issue sets that they've compiled, and be like, hey, this whole set's like $20, this whole set's $50, you know. And it just happened to be a Gotham like Gordon story, and then I saw Chuck Dixon. This is like right around the time that like maybe Alf Gord come out to the people at that point, and I'm like, oh my god, I found a Chuck Dixon story in the wall. Like, I have to buy this and see if he's good or not. And it's 4-issue miniseries. I don't know the fuller context of that era of Batman DC, but it's pretty good. Grounded story of like, basically, if you haven't read it, it's I think there's been like a murder or something related to cops, and it turns out it's like an inside job cover up. And so Gordon tells Batman, stay the fuck out of this, because this is my guys, I'm bringing them in. And it's like, that's cool. So because like Gordon, for me, is like a character I don't really care about. It's like, oh, it's Commissioner, and he gives, scoops to Batman, but that's really it,
He's such an important character though, because he's essentially Batman's only friend.
Yeah.
Because Alfred's not his friend. Alfred's like,
a father.
There are certain characters that you don't want to like embarrass yourself in front of, like, because they know you so well, they've seen you do things that, like, not that you're necessarily ashamed of, but like, you've grown beyond, and you want to show always that you're out of old patterns and you're a new man, you're grown up, all these things. So the characters that you have to write like that, where they have a parental sort of thing or an uncle type thing, they're set in one way. And the only character who is Batman's equal, on just sort of I'm a detective, dedicating my life to trying to help people. And, on that very fundamental level, they share that. And his real reality as Batman. I think that's like such an important character for him. There's all sorts of cool ways to break down all the Batman villains and characters, because each one of them is just some great little variation of the main part, of Batman. A lot of them are all just Batman in one way or another. Batman uses fear, Scarecrow uses fear. Batman uses his detective skills. Riddler really makes that important, for you to have. There's a juxtaposition of all the things. The Bane character is is driven in a similar way, of Batman to the perfect physicality, but he's using artificial means, whereas Batman is going, as far as
Rocky 4, right? With the...
yeah, exactly. The man, he's like iron. But everybody's kind of playing the game different. If you make a chain, one of the interesting things about the change they made to Two-Face. Two-Face is Harvey Dent. Harvey Dent was a district attorney. He was Batman's friend. So he's Batman's friend who's no longer Batman's friend. Similarly, you've got Robin, who's been pushed to the Jason Todd level of things, where he's killing people because he's the Punisher level version of Batman. And Batman loves him and cares about him, but basically he's a bad guy as far as what Batman's moral concerns are and constraints. So all of that stuff, I really think, just kind of, ties it all together. And is what makes all these great villains, is that they all fill out a little niche, but they don't step on each other's toes. They're different in the right way. They're complementary in the right way.
I want to ask you, because like I've been aware of like basically every villain reflects like an opposite shade of Batman.
The good ones too.
Yeah, like Killer Croc, at least some of his versions of how
it's
he comes
the physicality about. And the scare.
Batman is the true character. Bruce Wayne is the mask.
Yeah.
And so like Batman puts on an artificial, guise to reveal his true self.
In the movies, because they always focus on his love story as like the most important thing.
Yeah.
In the Batman comics, his love story is not important. And it seems crazy for people who haven't read the Batman thing. You don't understand the way that changes the dynamic of the way all the stories are told. His life does not revolve around his love life. He's a damaged person who's single-mindedly dedicated.
Yeah, he's tragic.
Preventing. He's tragic. And there's cool things and interesting things that happen, but he's very tragically made. And it's so great when it's done.
I think
right.
that's why Superman doesn't resonate really, because he's got a pretty good home life with Lois. It's like he doesn't really have a consequence to like being Superman.
Superman is hard to write well enough that most people will enjoy every story.
Yeah. Well, it's like Spider-Man, Batman, and Superman are kind of the prime characters.
Spider-Man and Batman struggle more because they're more rooted. The amount of things that make Superman have to struggle is small. but you have to put him in situations that challenge him, and you have to invent solutions to the problems that surprise your readers and demonstrate his virtue, that he is unwilling to just go, oh man, I didn't have a choice, and kill somebody like he does in the Man of Steel movie, which so many fans like me were disappointed in, because really the best Superman stories go, I know that it's easy to just kill the guy, but there's always a better way if you're willing to believe that. And that's the type of character that he really is when he's being done right. And there's some great stories I could point you to there for Superman, but he's definitely harder to like satisfy. Batman's way easy to satisfy.
Yeah. Oh, before I forget, what with that whole duality thing with the shades with the villains of Batman, what do you think? Because I can't figure it out. What is the contrast of Batman and Poison Ivy?
Well, I don't know that her I don't remember what her tragedy, like what exactly put for her and whatever, but ultimately she's somebody who's been affected by her past in a way that has moved her into a obsessive, compulsive,
eco-terrorism
mission to do this thing that she really fervently believes in, which is fundamentally who Batman is. Vaguely speaking, Batman is on a one-man mission because of some trauma in his past. And, so everybody is based, at the very least, every member of the Batman family, villain and hero alike, they're kind of feeding some of that, that bit of, I had some trauma and it formed me in this way. And that has led me on a very single-minded path like Batman. So that's one of his, because even somebody like Hugo Strange, he's dedicated, he's going to figure out, he's going to crack Batman's mind. He wants to be Batman again, that. There's so many bits that just all really do fits into the whole psychological aspect of the fact that we're acknowledging Batman's a little crazy. All of his villains are crazy, and Batman is a little crazy, but it's a crazy that we wish we had in society because it is functioning to protect us from all these things. Ultimately, if we're honoring the good versus evil narrative in which it's being portrayed to us. I don't really like breaking down that good versus evil narrative in the way that they often like to do, because I really do believe in the absolutes of the good and the evil and drawing these lines. And that's what makes the story so great and so easy to come back to for an audience, because once you learn the rules, you can be a knowing audience member and, be responding appropriately. It's like a dance that the writers and the creators do with you to set you up to enjoy the work.
God, that's fucking interesting. I'm the one like what you're saying is like Lord of the Rings versus Game of Thrones. It's like they're kind of doing two completely different things aside from like
the sex is just thrown in on top of it.
Well, not even that part. We're just saying like the core, it's like one is like Lord of the Rings is kind of like a religious mythology versus Game of Thrones is in the fantasy world, but it's kind of deconstructive of political theory, something that like is never really a question. Like there's very defined absolute good and evil in Lord of the Rings, and it's all kind of religious based, and so that frustrates me. Even though like the movies I think nail every great part of Lord of the Rings, it frustrates me actually trying to dig into it. Because like a great example is like I'm like, man, what is me and Ricky, my friend, watched the extended trilogy again together, and I was like, man, what's the history, what's the story, like the Balrog or Saruman and shit, and it's like, oh yeah, it's just like demons basically. I'm like,
my God, there's so much history though of that stuff.
It's so when you reduce it down though, it's all just demons and angels. It's just good, bad. I'm like, that's why I love Game of Thrones, because it's morally nihilistic in some aspects, and I like that because there's but then that it's hard to make those kind of stories resonate versus like Superman or Batman. The good will win. That frustrates me.
People are always trying to make or good writers are usually trying to make some sort of point and demonstrate something in a non-threatening way. An ambiguous story, especially comic books, it's like it's characters, they're archetypes. It's a lady with big boobs is not offensive to you. She's not, think you're better than me with your big boobs. No, she's just a drawing. A fat man isn't upset that he's fat in a comic book. He's just a drawing representative of a person who exists in society. And things are generally boiled down to sort of like, short, tall, average, big, fat, medium. it's all just shorthand for being able to get the basics of a thing, so that we can kind of relate to each other in a language that we might understand, the visual language of the world around us. And I think people have really gotten hung up on it in a way that is very detrimental to visual storytelling. And when visual storytelling is at its best, you learn so much. Just think about all of the exaggerated forms and characters from old Looney Tunes cartoons, and how much you learned from all those exaggerated forms, all those exaggerated bits of acting. It's the exaggerated expression that shows you what the subtle expression is that you're reading off of somebody when they're having a conversation. But it's not until somebody exaggerates it at a comedy club that you're like, oh my God, that's the face my friend makes. Oh, that's the face I make when I do the thing. But they've exaggerated, they've pointed it out in a great way where they've stretched it out. That's what this is, entertainment. It's just like sort of like bullfighting. You pull out the red cloth that they like and go, look, red cloth. They go, oh yeah, look at that red cloth. Yeah. Go running towards it if it's interesting. Oh, that's interesting to me. But you have to pull out what's interesting, all the interesting shit. And there's so few people, they don't have this art form. It's not being touted enough, just freaking really learning how to be a great writer. And I see just laziness across the board for so many people who get into it when it comes to writing. And I think writing is the most important part of the game, despite the fact that you couldn't do this without the artists. But really, it's like the thought ahead of time to give the artist something good and worthwhile to do is the most important thing.
Oh God, yeah. I guess in closing, I've really enjoyed talking with you. I definitely have you on again in the future. Just chit chat about shit, man. You got a wide breadth of knowledge and interesting points. So I appreciate it. I didn't know what to expect from you, but I definitely love the energy from that tweet. And I'm like, I got to friend this guy, and it looks great, Last in closing, I guess, pick your brain. Have you seen the Barbie movie?
No, but I I participate in the conversation about entertainment enough that I definitely know a decent amount about it. And I watched that whole diatribe at the end of the movie, and I've seen a couple pieces of it. I've seen enough pieces of it that I'm pretty familiar. Why? What's the question beyond that?
Oh, just given a lot of your commentary and your range, I figured that would be something you might have actually invested in, because I really appreciate the movie. I unironically love the movie, even though I guess the real joy I give it is kind of ironic to the intent.
Yeah.
Because I'm from Oklahoma originally. I'm in Ohio now, but Oklahoma's small, shit kicker town. And then I go in the army, and after basically I go to medic school, and my roommate was from Colorado, and he's like a libtard that's all about feminism and shit. He's a male feminist. He's always on the phone with his girlfriend after work and shit, talking about feminist crap and stuff. And he was a film critic enthusiast too. He's like a theater kid, and I never been confronted with all of these ideas he was saying. And he's kind of the core of my formal interest in movie criticism. So I appreciate this guy and the experience I had around him, even though highly disagreeable, and what's funny is back then he was telling me this 2012. He's telling me the lie of modern feminism of well, feminism is for men, it's about equality. And I just always had this knee jerk of well, why is it called feminism? We have a word for your equality. It's called egalitarianism.
Yeah.
And so it just always rubbed me wrong. But
well, because it's just the overcorrection. I mean, and that's always what we're dealing with here in society. It gets pushed upon. The balance, the middle is always where we want to go.
Yeah.
But in order to bring about some change, a certain point is put on one thing, and it's cool, but we're supposed to drop that at a certain point. And I really believe that the people at the top who friggin' hire, put people in think tanks and are ultimately keeping everybody down through the money system and everything else. They just have been figuring out how to get us fighting for years and years and years. And it's working, whites and blacks and different races and men and women, and just everybody's fighting about something. And I'm done with that shit. I'm not, it's not that I'm not a fighter. It's just this is a waste of our time. And I think at a certain point we go, doctor, it hurts when I do this. stop doing that, you know? So I'm like, I like, it hurts when I do this. So like, I'm not going to be playing that same thing anymore. And I'm just like here to talk about my books and the music that I make and things that I want to do, and to put out love into the world through all the shit that I love. And I'm just going to keep doing that until something happens.
Yeah. I can appreciate that. And I definitely get the sentiment. With Barbie movie, it's funny because like Ben Shapiro put like a 45-minute review just saying it's the worst thing ever. It's just woke, this and that, blah, blah. And the reason I mentioned my whole background with that male feminist roommate was his, pitching the narrative lie, at least back then, about feminism's for men, because patriarchy hurts men, all that spiel.
Mm-hmm.
I watched Barbie movie and I was very surprised, first of all, at like how creative it was, because it's like kind of like a Toy Story element to it.
Yeah, it seemed cute. Like I said, I'm pretty well versed in
Yeah.
what
And watching it, Ken, of course, is like the real sell of that movie. He's a real takeaway for everybody. Everyone loves Ken.
A charming actor. I like him a lot.
Oh yeah, but there's like just a dumb child honesty to that character that you appreciate, and you just like he's kind of the villain of the movie for a while, but he's not a bad guy. He's the conflict creator, and
you're a bad guy, but we're not bad guy.
Right. And what's funny is he instantly became like a Sigma male meme, like with American Psycho and Drive and Blade Runner 2049. And I thought like, oh, wow, this writer was so smart to actually try to make a film with that like feminist lie of feminism's for men, patriarchy hurts men because it puts because the whole narrative of Ken is like he does all
by
the alpha.
End of it balances itself out like a decent
right.
And I think that was what The Boys had going for it for a moment. It certainly was slanted in whichever way it was slanted, and that was fine. The thing about the latest season though is it just got really gross. Like really gross.
I guess
the previous season got really gross. I mean, the dude was just literally, I just had to sit there while he was being raped on a table and watch him slowly go from, oh, this is like a joke, to I'm uncomfortable, and made me uncomfortable in ways that I'd really not rather be uncomfortable watching a fucking, bombastic superhero show. Like I really felt like they were like, this might make you uncomfortable. This might make you, and it did. It made me uncomfortable. And I was like, this is uncomfortable. I don't like really dig this. This is like fucking rape on screen. And I think you think it's okay because it's a white guy. And I find that distasteful.
Oh,
really-
they actually, there's an article where he basically said like, before with like, what's her name? Starlight, they have like this whole like victim narrative of believe all women. But then when it's to Huey, it's like literally the creator's like, oh, it's funny. And it's like my takeaway of that, regardless of the creator's intent, is like, well, like male victimhood is just, it's never acceptable. Like there's an experiment where like a woman will go to a public place and start crying, and everyone's trying to soothe her. A man does it, and it's like, hey, you need to fucking leave, because like we intrinsically know men are the power. And so it's like you can't accept
fire and so many other things too because of how people react to these things, unfortunately. So I mean, like that's the thing. It's like, they did the men have gotten it just as bad as the women. Starlight got it before we knew her as a character, so that became her defining character trait, and then she was humanized thereafter and empowered thereafter. She hasn't been raped or dealt with any of that shit since. She learned through that experience and grew and whatever else. It's very odd to have one of your main characters in that gross of a position this late into the game, even though men, white men, all sorts of people have been getting it bad in the course of The Boys. So it's a really pointed, weird thing. And with Starlight's rape, we weren't sitting there watching it. It was suggested, something was said to her. There was a moment, we cut away, whatever. That, like, I'm literally sitting in the fucking fetish chamber with her. She started getting it was so uncomfortable. I don't want to fucking sit in your fetish. Like seriously, I don't watch TV to to freaking learn other people's fetishes. Like, you can tell those stories without me actually having to sit and feel the horniness coming off of your characters. I mean, and this is somebody who wrote a book called Fucking for Our Future. You're not going to feel any fucking horniness coming off of my characters, but it's gross in the boys. Like, it's really like that whole fucking character and the whole thing. They really managed to create a visceral, gross, slimy situation that legit like turned me off to the show. Even though I'm still watching it because I'm invested in the show.
Oh God, yeah.
And I did like the first season and the second season. But starting with the third season, I started to go, this is a bit heavy-handed and it's bothering me. And by the last season, I've been like, man, it really is just like so heavy-handed. I wish it could just be a little bit more subtle about what it was doing here. It'd be much more enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. They've lost like subtlety. They've lost like the appeal. I was talking, my main guy, my co-host is Ricky, so that's who I'm mentioning. He's kind of fallen out from the show, just had disinterest, even though he really liked the first couple seasons. But oh fuck, what was I gonna say? It's right on the tip of my tongue. I mean, I definitely got reawoken with the Homelander episode, but he was complaining about them using the compound V, and I'm like, well, see, this is why like it being a comic adaptation matters, because this is like, that's the whole twist of the show thus far, is that they lasted into 3 seasons not using it. When you read the book, they've always had compound V. They shoot Huey up, and I think at book 2, so the fact that they were creative and like wrote that out for as long as they could, I really appreciate. A invested story that was like believable for the universe of like them getting by this whole time against a nuclear option. But yeah, they've definitely lost something, some sort of magic with the show's been lost. I agree. But getting back to Barbie, it was funny because with that whole male feminist thing I was talking about, with their roommate, I thought Ken was written purposely by Greta Gerwig and her co-writer to be that pitch of feminism. Like, this is for men, because look at like, Ken does everything right to get the girl, but it's not enough because there's something more you have to do.
Yeah, she definitely went out of her way to make a more nuanced sort of thing. And definitely balanced, even though the diatribe at the end from the women was bothersome to me. And it's just heavy-handedness is just a real thing. It's a real thing if you're somebody who gives a shit about good writing. And if you care about good writing, heavy-handed stuff, you go, this is a bit heavy-handed. I prefer it if it wasn't so.
Well, it's funny because like there's a lot of parts of the diatribe that I agree with, where it's like, all these problems that you're talking about are like women tearing each other down, like the whole like makeup and your beauty standards and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can look up memes about black guys getting with welfare checks, fat land whales. Like, men, we have no threshold for the bottom we'll accept.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Victoria's Secret model, sure, but like, we'll fuck anything. We'll fuck apple pies. There's a movie all about a guy so desperate he fucks a pie, like, and so it's funny because like, a lot of the problems with women is other women, and it was funny that movie maybe accidentally pointed that out, but
I don't think it's necessarily accidentally pointed out. I do believe that the artist, that was the artist's intention. They were trying to make some real art. They were recognizing that art is balance, and they were attempting to put a relatively balanced and interesting perspective on Barbie out into the world. The only reason why I've never seen it, I haven't watched it, is because Barbie to me was all about fashion and all about superficial culture and superficial reality, and I have no interest in superficial culture and superficial reality. So Barbie's
definitely not superficial.
No, I know that they made a cute and interesting movie about Barbie, but Barbie is about superficial reality. It's about girls dressing up a doll in different outfits and projecting themselves into a doll. Look at me. I'm the one because of this outfit. How good that I look. I look so good. That's what Barbie's about.
Yeah.
So for me, the fundamentals of what Barbie's about, I am not about any of the same things that Barbie's about. I don't like Barbie's vibe.
I think Barbie is so great because it like reveals generally speaking, it reveals the lack of depth that most women's fantasy has versus men's like, we want to be Braveheart, we want to be what's his name, Schwarzenegger in Predator,
well,
like we want
they did a test of kids a long time ago, and what they said was that the boys would try to become the avatar of the thing, versus the women would pretend the thing was them.
Yes.
And it's a very fundamental difference. We were like, that's because the boys are using it as like a stepping stone to bring themselves somewhere, and the girls are pulling it back down to earth of who they are and what they can do and what their, you know, opportunities are around them or whatever else. The boys are imagining insane opportunities that they don't have because of this ability that tends to come more naturally to boys, but also, you know, there are some girls who do play like this as well, of course, because like I said, you know, different.
Yeah, I'm using generalities, of course,
but in generalities, it is true, you know, that's more a boy nature versus a girl nature. You know, there are differences, and it's important. Most of the girls are not showing up to these feminized masculine properties. The girls actually tend to like masculine energy done right just as much, if not more, than the boys do. So it's all really backwards the way we think about all this stuff. And certainly I thought it seemed like Barbie was done at least relatively in a relatively balanced way. But the for me, it's definitely gotten a little bit out of hand.
Yeah. Long story short, the Ken meme, it's funny that it came about and it resonated with so many people because the creator did not intend it at all. She seemed to actually clap back at the resonance that his character had versus Barbie's story, which is kind of just forgettable, you know, like her actual journey. Like the movie's good, she's good in it, but her actual journey, her growth is kind of minuscule at best. It is nice of like the idea of like self-acceptance, but it kind of when I got so frustrated because, you know, I've been a fan of Menace, or what is like kind of, you know, now Friday Night Tights and all this stuff. And it's frustrating to see like how they tried to derail this movie with no real thought and stuff. And I just think it's the breadth of interpretations this movie has. It's kind of like one of the Bibles in cinema. Like Last Jedi is a Bible where there's so many interpretations of like, this is blasphemy, and other people like, this is directly in line with the saga. So it's like it has a
that was
a value to it.
One, because that one was the first test of sort of like moral fortitude and like going with the flow of like the mob. And there's a lot of people who just in the name of, I don't want to be called out by this mob, went along with whatever they said. And were trying to basically defend them. People who are good writers, we saw immediately that what was going on with The Last Jedi was just a problem in terms of the long-term planning. They had not long-term planned. And that movie turned the ship around on a bunch of things that they had started sort of saying with the first movie. And going into a third movie, they were putting themselves into a really bad situation.
Yeah.
And anybody who could see that was calling them out. And then what they did was they obscured the real criticism of, dude, there's nowhere to go from here. You have just majorly fucked yourself. And they turned it into, you guys are racist and sexist and phobes, and the only reason you don't like this thing that we did right here is because you don't like how inclusive we're being. And that was not the truth. And that like completely invalidated the studios with the audience, and the audience has been essentially fighting them ever since.
Yeah. It's been a wild ride ever since The Last Jedi. That's what got me on doing YouTube at all, was The Last Jedi and stuff. And like, I'm not even an OT guy. I'm a prequel guy. The OT is like, yeah, it's fine addition to my story of Star Wars. It's a nice conclusion of that saga of Lucas, but prequels are my thing. And so I don't have an affinity for Luke Skywalker. I'm a dark side guy. But even me, I'm like, this doesn't feel right. Something's wrong with this. And then you start watching essays on YouTube, like, oh wow, you know. So Last Jedi's actually made me appreciate Luke Skywalker's story more. But I'm still a prequel guy. But I don't want to compare Last Jedi in the sense of like it's good like Barbie, but it's one of those kind of biblical events in cinema with art where it's like,
do you like
schism. Oh no, I hate it.
The
I appreciate, because I think it is still real art. It's purposely divisive. It's purposely targeted at the long-term fans.
I do
But
think it's real art too in that way too. I did like an hour dedicated to defending aspects of it, but there are aspects that unfortunately were never picked up in the third movie by J.J. Abrams, as we basically suspected. If J.J. comes back, he's going to want to do the stories that he started.
wanted.
And he had to walk back on every single one of those in order to do that. And I mean, you know, that's just the swell horses outfit that we got with this freaking campaign. It's just crazy. You know, their Star Wars is so working against so many different things on so many levels that even when it's like good, it's like good in a way that it's just
Average,
frustrating, you know. God, I mean, like what? Like this could have been really viscerally good.
The Acolyte is like the plot of the Acolyte. I'm like, they actually have a decent story to play with. Some of these plot points could work or interesting, but the delivery and just like when you get people that clearly aren't like, they don't get why Star Wars works, what makes it work. It's frustrating, but it's like, it's funny though, because like it has, you know, it's like, oh, there's this Star Trek's really good. It's like, yeah, Star Trek sucks. You know, I'd rather talk about bad Star Wars than good Star Trek.
It's,
you know,
it now sucks. Yes, it's Star Trek is at Star Trek was the first fan they destroyed. I'm the biggest Star Trek fan, and that was the first one. I was like, fuck, I see what's happening here. They're fucking up my shit and then telling me, you know, like they're pissing on my face and telling me it's raining. You know, it's like it's complete bullshit. You know, completely. And I'm just done sort of taking having the conversation the way they want me to have the conversation. You know, like as if it is debatable. You know, I buy toys. I'm a consumer in this world. I see how well they're doing. And they're sitting there and telling me, no, we're doing really good. People really like this. And meanwhile, they got all these paid shills who don't fucking buy toys, who don't go to the movies. You know, it's just like Hollywood is all about appearances. And if you let them, they will pretend to be successful. And like, unfortunately, the only cure for that is calling them out on the bullshit, you know, as it happens, and just going, no, this is bullshit and it's happening and I'm going to call you out on it. And eventually they have to stop these tactics when you know, fully catch up to it. So, I mean, it's just like, it's got to come to an end. But I really want to spend the rest of my night with my
no, I'm literally about to be like, hey, thank you for being on, man. I'm gonna let you get out, because I know you should have left probably 10, 20 minutes ago, but I love having a conversation with you.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. It was a great conversation, and thank you for having me on and giving me an opportunity to talk about this stuff. And yeah, I'll certainly do it again in the future when I've got some more stuff to share. You know, it'll be a month or two, and I'll be promoting King of Kings #2. So life is good. It's a lot more to come.
I'll get in the first one.
Snider and Blacklight District Studios. Yeah, please, you know, the read my back catalog. Go check out the book. You know, we got 16 hours left, and we're still trying to, you know, just make as much money out of this campaign as we possibly can, so that we can just put it into the next stuff and we can relax. I mean, really, like, you know, just to fairly pay me and Steve as we've been paid before for being comic book creators, we got to make like 15 grand. So I'd really like to see us at least hit that amount by the end of the day tomorrow. And you know, if you know anybody who you think might dig this book, please send it out to them. Send them a link directly. Share the book and help us to get this thing across the board, please.
Yeah, there's the link again. I'm gonna let you go and kick you out, and then I'm just gonna exit out this stream with playing your trailer again. Thank you for coming on. Everyone go sub and follow Blacklight District Studio.
Have a good one. I'll talk to you soon.
See you, man. All right, so we're gonna pull that up again. I'm gonna close out. I'll probably go head over to Tony. He's live. I don't know what the hell he's talking about. I'm gonna go to YouTube really quick. Having a lot of tabs fucking slows your internet down, so that's why I gotta dig through here for real quick. Where is this channel? Bear with me, people. We're almost out of here. Man, what an interesting creator. I'm very excited to finish reading his comic. I did back it digital, and I hope y'all do as well. Play you the trailer again, and we'll head on out. Share screen. Here we go. And we'll look at this one more time.
everybody doesn't like. Big titties. Say it again. Men and women alike love big titties. Boys, girls, and babies love big titties. Just admit that I'm right. You love big titties. Yeah.
Who doesn't?
You love big titties. Love big titties. I love big titties. I love big titties. I love big titties.
We want you for our future. Sign up for notifications now on Kickstarter.
You love big titties. Love.
Only from Blacklight District Studios.
What a fun, simple pitch that was. What a great time. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all. I hope you go and back this book, help a indie creator. It's a little $6 for the digital. You get the non-nude PDF of Fucking for Our Future. I read the first couple pages. It's funny little thing going on here. And I definitely want to see what he does in the future with this property. Something more than just tits. It's kind of subversive. Appreciate y'all hanging out. And I'll see you probably Thursday. Be back on the beef with Rookie. Farewell.